Hello there, Bouncy here, and welcome to We're the Lolocaust back in the game, or back in the game, Rob, as it now says on my notes, because I got a bit bored earlier and started to make a logo, and I did, as I'll show you, I did the We're the Lolocaust in block text, then couldn't be bothered after that, and I thought back in the game, like Mrs. Brown's Boys, the movie.
I hate that show.
Yeah, well, the movie's worse. But this is episode 3, which we've decided, collectively, to call episode 3. Episode 3. So, if you're looking for it on iTunes, which you've probably found if you're listening to it, but you need to look for We're Lolocaust Back in the Game, episode 3, episode 3, episode 3. The power of 3.
It is. Beautiful. 3 is the magic number. It's been scientifically confirmed.
And it's also the number of D's required to be poked in the eye while watching a film. 3D. So firstly, a big thank you for the 8 people who've rated us on iTunes. That's 8.
8?
Not 3.
No.
That's more than 3.
I'm confused now with about numbers I can't even comprehend.
8 people who've rated us, and as far as I can ascertain, all of them have rated us 5 stars.
Beautiful. Right,
which is very nice of them, considering the fact that it's a bit rough around the edges. They obviously know that there's talent. They recognise raw talent. They're like the Alan Sugars of the podcast review world. And thanks specifically to Synaptic Flare, Shogun P, Killswitch. Monkey Guido. I think it's Monkey Guido, or Monkey Edo. I can't remember. I wrote it and my handwriting's bad. Dr. Hamhock, and I've got to thank Postman Gav.
Yeah.
I mean, he puts the effort in, I suppose.
I like the particular bit where he got confused by the whole back in the game thing.
Yeah.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, I don't understand what... For those who don't follow the Twitter conversations that I have, Postman Gav, he's a long-time listener of mine, and he basically said, "Oh, did you realise what you've called your show?" That was essentially...
Basically,
was that an accident? And I thought, no, the show that we created a logo for and have written 2 articles about promoting and mention at the beginning of the show. And then he said something weird, like, I never heard you mention foil bags or something. Like, that was...
He has to get up early for his job, bless him.
Well, also, I mean, as well as being a postman, he's the number 1 UK Gru impersonator.
True.
As in, Despicable Me, yeah.
A lot of people don't realise that about Gav.
A lot of people don't realise that.
Very interesting, interesting life.
Yeah, he does. He does. So thank you to all you people. I know Gav there got more credit than he's really due, being a bloody postman, but the point is, these first few reviews are the reviews that will make the difference. If we get into New and Noteworthy, then we'll get a whole new audience, which can be bolstered by the awesome audience we've got now. So specifically, you people have helped, so thank you very much. Salute to you.
We are saluting.
Yeah. So let's move on. If you've got any comments about the show, that's probably a good time to drop in to mention that now.
Yeah.
Feel free to message us on Twitter at We Are the Lolocaust with a letter R instead of the word, because they're restrictive on how many letters they use. We can use the letters Holocaust in succession, but we can't use the word R.
Right.
It's not censorship, it's just the amount of letters.
Yeah.
And we figured We Are the Lolocaust sounded a bit more like a funny army.
True, hopefully, yeah.
So,
I think we made a good choice there.
Yeah. So you can get us on there, or you can email us at We're the Lolocaust, which is the full version, at gmail.com. But yeah, any comments, if it's, we think you're shit, email us and tell us why. Don't just say, we think you're shit. That's not constructive. No. If you say you're shit because your content's awful, great. We can do something about it. If you're shit because Rob's terrible, I can get rid of him.
Very nice, isn't it?
He's currently sitting on a toilet chair.
It's actually quite comfy.
Yeah. It makes me laugh whenever people sit on it. It's one of those chairs where you lift the base out as a toilet underneath for a chamber pot. So right now, but in that one, there's a Batmobile. Because
I'm not sure how I feel about
my youngest thinks it's brilliant to have the Batmobile it's like, that's the Batcave basically underneath you.
All makes sense now.
So you're actually sitting in Wayne Manor.
Cool.
If you're above the Batcave.
It's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, get in touch and review us and share it like people are. It's brilliant. Right, Rob, what have you been up to this week?
Not a lot actually. No, I hate to be terribly boring about it. It's been kind of a standard week. A lot more Destiny, again, as I mentioned previously, with our old friend the Flares. Nightfall Strikes and such like, which basically involves hiding and sniping people. It's ever so fun, but these are the wonderful little loopholes you get in games. Tapped Out, as always. I know we're both Tapped Out fans. And a lot more Football Manager this week. My Peterborough United team are doing rather well. I've just signed Andy Carroll, which is wonderful news for everybody who loves ponytails on Toolman.
And I've now just put some magnets on the laptop. Oh dear. Anyway, I got these to show you. I'll pass these over to you. These were sent to us, sent to me specifically by, Colm on Twitter. You can find him at SOLM67 on Twitter. I put out last year, I found out that they'd made in Ireland some gaming icon stamps.
I remember this.
Yeah. And he messaged back. I'll send them over to you. There's 68 Irish cents each, which is probably about £500 in our money because their economy's crap. Everything's potatoes or tarmac, isn't it?
Right, just like Lord of the Rings, right?
Just like Lord of the Rings. But yeah, he put them into a lovely little frame, little clip frame with a magnet on it, and he printed out that background himself.
Oh, very creative.
So it's a very nice little frame. And I'll put a photo on the Twitter feed. I did put it on around Christmas time when he posted it the first time, but I thought it was a bit remiss of me. I didn't get a chance to actually mention it on a show because I wasn't doing one at the time. I was still taking all the benefits of having a listenership without actually having to put any content out.
Well, a wrong has been righted.
A wrong has been right. So thank you very much, Com. You are a legend. Also this week, I've been reading a book, Rob.
Ooh.
But
What
not a
sort of
book,
Nathan?
a digital book, an e-book. Not a book from Yorkshire, an electronic book.
Oh.
The book I have been reading is Ex-Heroes.
Okay.
By, I think, Peter Klein, I think his name is. It's a very interesting concept. I think you will appreciate it. It is set after a zombie apocalypse. The remnants of society in Los Angeles have moved into the Paramount studio lot.
Okay.
And it's called The Mount. And they've, because if you think about it, every time I see it, it's got big walls around it.
Okay.
If you're going to hide somewhere, lots of supplies, lots of
Kind of like a
materials.
large-scale version of Dead Set at the moment.
It's very much like a large-scale version of Dead Set, but it's got the word heroes in it. Because this is a world in which superheroes actually exist as well.
Okay. So zombie apocalypse.
Zombie apocalypse.
Movie studio superhero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, some of the superheroes have been consumed and have become zombies.
Okay.
Some of them are just dead. Some of them become villains, but the majority of them are working with the people in the Mount. So there's a tension between the people in the Mount who look at the heroes and think, you don't need to be here. Why would you risk your life for us? There's one guy who has basically got completely impervious skin. He's a St. George. He can fly and he can breathe fire and he can't be bitten or scratched. So he's pretty much safe. He can live wherever he wants. But he's a hero, so he's going through. There's one guy who can convert himself into pure energy. So he's powering the base. He is their generator. And so there's all these bits where their superpowers are actually essential for the survival of humanity. But at the same time, as anybody who's ever watched a zombie apocalypse thing knows, there's always going to be a span the worst. And in this case, there's a gang, like a street gang, who would have basically been like a biker gang, but they've now been elevated up and they've sort of taken over the streets. And the story of the Ex-Heroes goes that they encounter a zombie, or an X, as they call it this, who can talk and has full control over themselves. And then the next day, it's gone back to being a flesh-eating monster. And it all seems to hinge on this one kind of alpha who is able to control and command the zombie horde. So where I am at the moment, he's about to send an all-out attack of every zombie in Los Angeles against Paramount Studios, which is being defended by a group of superheroes.
It draws a lot of elements from previous works, I think.
It does. I mean, there's a series of books. I think there's 5 or 6 books. It's not... The only thing I can say about it is it does what a lot of zombie books do, where it tries to say, this is what it was like then, before the outbreak. Then it does a bit about what it's like now. And it flicks between it. But being a book, that's sometimes hard to get which part of the narrative you're in. Yeah. Obviously, if you're watching, like when you're watching Lost and they do the flashbacks or flash forwards, you could see, well, that was Jack when he was still in the hospital. Yeah. But if the book said Jack put down his drink and he got confused, you wouldn't know necessarily where in the timeline that lay. That would be very, I wouldn't want to read Lost as a book. That would be very confusing.
Yeah. So this is a TV show.
Yeah. So this kind of does lose a certain element, but at the same time, it's superheroes and zombies with movies. And they have like, the people spotting on the wall zombie killing. So they get points if they shoot like Alex Trebek off of Jeopardy. And that's quite a nice little touch. There's always little references to films and TV and things. So yeah, I got it. I think it was about £2 for the Kindle book. Mm-hmm. It was about £9 for the physical. Because obviously nowadays, if you're not a well-known writer, Kindle is a very good way to go.
Yeah.
Some of the best writers I know just put out Kindle books. Yeah. But this...
Hasn't Tolkien just gone to Kindle?
Tolkien would have gone to Kindle if Kindle hadn't been propagated by somebody of a racial minority. Ooh. You know what he's like? That racist Tolkien. Him writing his racy books. But yeah, so I'm going to finish that off and I'll feed back next week my final judgment. But it is one, if you're ever looking for a little book or a series that you might get into, I think it's one that ticks all the boxes for gamers. Like for me, loving films, loving Walking Dead, loving games about survival and even superheroes, it was just, it sat nicely. For all its flaws, it's there. And it also does that thing that books can do, where it gets a little bit sexy without needing to necessarily be sexy.
Yeah.
You find it like in horror books, and I guess Game of Thrones does it quite a lot as well, yeah. Where it's like, well, it's okay, because we're doing one of them books. And it's like, oh, the outfit clung to her svelte frame in the rain. It's like, ooh. I don't know if I should read this out loud anymore. Because that's how I read all my books. Just naked in the kitchen, out loud into a microphone.
One foot up on a stool in a very heroic Hamlet-esque pose.
And a pipe, just an inch away from my face at all times. So that's very good.
So, just to point out, I'm glad we had a little disclaimer on episode 1 that we might deviate from gaming because we're nearly 12 minutes into episode 3. I've played the same games I played last week and you've just read a book.
And I've got some stamps with gaming characters on.
Well, there we go. That's the get out clause. Good.
And you had to read. I was worried for a minute there. And they've got words on, which then led to books.
They've got words on.
Now, a zombie apocalypse could also be known as an Armageddon. And containing the word Armageddon is Carmageddon Reincarnation, which I've also been playing this week. And it's a game.
It is a game. I haven't played Carmageddon in years.
Well, I first played Carmageddon in my old best friend, Matthew Stratt. Actually, I say old best friend. He was never my best friend. He was one of those friends who was there. I met him again this week, actually, for the first time in a long while at the Straw Bear Festival. But we'll talk about that privately. It's not that interesting. But he was the one who, he had a PC. So we'd go around his house and play Worms or...
He was like the only guy with the TV on the street in the 50s.
He was a bit like that.
Guy with the PC.
So we go around, and his dad very rarely told anyone off, but he told me off for hitting the spacebar, because you had to handbrake with spacebar.
Yeah.
I'd hammer the handbrake to spin it around, accelerate, spin it, just turn it around, especially when you go to the American football field on the first level, first race.
Quite a big open space.
Yeah, and if you can do a handbrake turn right for all the players, you've got all sorts of artistic impression bonuses and stuff. It was one of those really fun games that you shouldn't have played really as a kid, but at the same time they generated false hype by submitting the game to the BBFC in a state that they knew it would get banned.
Yeah.
It was the first game, I think, that had ever been submitted to the BBFC, and as such, the BBFC didn't have guidelines and were appalled and just went, no. Refused certification, so therefore the first game to be banned in Britain. But of course, a banned thing gets onto the front page of the papers.
Yeah, it's the same principle with Firestarter by the Prodigy. They banned that from Radio 1.
Exactly.
Instant smash hit.
Yeah. And it worked for Carmageddon. They then just made a few changes, off it went. And then it launched Carmageddon 2, which is Carpocalypse now, which is very, very good as well. And then the original team didn't work on the third one, TDR 2000, which was more trying to take on the Death Race 2000 title from the Roger Corman film that inspired the first one. So yeah, I loved it. And I played them over and over again. I had the N64 version, which was proper shit. That was properly terrible.
Trying to rekindle days past and failing miserably.
Well, it was kind of in the middle. I think 95 Carmageddon came out, and then I think the N64 was about 98 that one came out. So it hadn't been around for too long. The PS1 version as well was horseshit. But I think it was because it was one that was made for a PC and a keyboard. It was just I don't like games that do that now, but this one just worked. So then, flash forward to a couple of years ago, I'm at Eurogamer, and I bump into the people that are making the game, and I had a chat with them, and I did a nice little interview, and it made it onto the Lolocaust site, and saying about, and they were working on the Carmageddon iOS game at that point, and Reincarnation, which had been kickstarted. Now, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Kickstarter. Some games that come out, are just really not worth the time, or the people setting them up come up with a really great concept. There's no way they're going to go make that game. Yeah. Like that Yogscast game, the Avengers, or whatever it was called, that they got scrapped. But they've made a huge amount of money because the Yogscast would always have funded whatever they wanted to make. All they did is, here, it's going to be this game. Well, no. It didn't happen, and then people were told they couldn't get refunds. It was all a big mess.
Yeah.
So I'm very against the idea of big names using it as a platform for unrealistic goals. Now, Peter Molyneux's Goddess was controversial because some people said, well, he charged for access via Kickstarter and then made it cheap on Steam and then made it free on iPad. Well, I think if you kickstart a project, it's not about being the only people playing it. It's about being the people who helped make that game happen.
Ground, You kickstarted the project.
Exactly. That is what it is. It isn't, oh, well, I paid 20 quid, so therefore you can only ever charge £20.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for some people they look at it the opposite of Minecraft. Minecraft started cheap and got more expensive as more features came in. With Goddess, it started off expensive and got cheaper as time went on. All games get cheaper over time.
Well, yeah.
And then when it went free to play, people were like, what the hell? We never got behind a free to play in-app purchase game. So I can understand the criticism, but then the game itself on Steam, which is when you actually are kickstarting, the iPad one wasn't part of it. I think it was a stretch goal. And so you can't really say that you were sold this game that then didn't work.
Became something else.
Yeah. And I really like Goddess. I think it's very good. And I think Peter Molyneux was right to do it. I think Double Fine were right to use it to publish the Double Fine adventure. Broken Age was the thing, And there have been some very good things that come out of it. Now, Carmageddon, they went through Kickstarter. I supported it. And I had the ability to get the game for free. I'd totally forgotten. Didn't claim it. I've never claimed it. And then started saying, well, why have I not had an email? Like, normally if you're a backer, you get emails. Turned out my payment never went through. So although I backed it, it hadn't properly gone through properly. So when it was successful, the money obviously wasn't in my bank, so it didn't. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. So, cut to a couple of weeks ago, Steam sale is in its height. And, in true Carmageddon fashion, they advertise the fact they're in the sale. They're having a massive slash, which was hilarious. And Carmageddon Reincarnation was about $11.99.
Cool.
And I thought, it's early access. It's still supporting the game. It's like what I would have paid for Kickstarter. The sweetener was you get Carmageddon 1, 2 and 3 as well.
That's like a bundle pack.
So you get, if you don't like the new one, you've still got the ones you loved. It was genius. And they were about $5 each. So really, I paid 12 quid for 3 games. TDR could have left, really. I don't think I'll ever bother installing it unless it's got trading cards and it's going on there for 5 hours and it's getting straight off again. Even the makers of Carmageddon, they know that TDR is not a very good game and they didn't make it. So they will just say, look, we'll give it away. We'll have to give it away. You'll get it. But then I put Reincarnation on the laptop, on the Falcon that Hot gave me, the trusty Lolocaust laptop. And it didn't work. I couldn't run it. It was just too beefy. And I couldn't change the settings downwards. It was just still too beefy. So I thought, oh well, I've still got original Carmageddon. I'm happy with that. One day I'll have a machine that will play Carmageddon Reincarnation.
And I'll just download it and off I go.
Yeah. Then I went to the missus's house. And I saw her nice shiny laptop she bought this year. And I thought...
She left it unguarded.
So I did ask if it was okay. I installed it remotely because what I have found about Steam and what is brilliant is because at the moment I have an account signed in there and here. So I leave it signed in there because I'm very rarely on it here. So when I go round, her kids can play on it or I can have a look at it, messages or anything. And when I bought Carmageddon, I was at my shop and it says, you have a Steam logged in. Would you like to download this game now? Hit it. Oh, and it automatically installed at her house. So I went round and said, I don't suppose while you're doing your ironing, you would mind if I just very quickly tried out this game that I've got. She said, no, it's absolutely fine. So I went off and I'm playing it. So she came and sat down next to me to have a look at what game it was I was playing. Wasn't prepared for it to be a game where she walked in and I'm massacring penguins in the Arctic, just handbrake turn for a load of penguins. She's like, it's not a very nice game. I went, no, it's Carmageddon. It's all about death and destruction.
All about,
But it ran reasonably well. Her machine's just still an on-balls graphics card. I mean, it's nothing beefy for running games, but actually the general settings that it launched in, it ran fine. I then turned them down because I wanted it to run really well. One frame rate would probably drop if the crashes are going on. But it's really, really nice. It's a really good update. It retains everything that made Carmageddon. You've still got the little kind of image of yourself up in the corner, sort of being knocked around and stuff. Which interesting fact, when they filmed those for the original release, they actually had a man in a chair and they'd hit him with sticks and things and they'd knock him around a bit. There was him and then the girl, Diana, who was quite an attractive woman. She was only about 13. They should have put a mention of that on there. But yeah, so they kind of, they're in it. And all the characters you liked were in there, but they've kind of upgraded all the cars and the textures, but it still feels like coming in. It's still like
at its heart.
Hit delete a couple of times, or hit backspace a couple of times to repair your car, and hit R to restore your track, and everything's as you remember it. The loading screens, they've got these massive they've kind of gone for that really kind of iconographic, big text using pictures of infographic, that's what I think about iconographic. Infographic kind of look that makes it it's really cool. It's just really cool. And I really like it.
Best review.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's early access, so part of me thinks I shouldn't really pass a judgment on it because it's not finished. I don't think there's multiplayer yet. There's no mod support yet. It's just what they've released. And they're constantly working on it. Every week they do a Twitch stream where they show you a slight change they've made to the physics, or they might have added a power or whatever. And it's great. I mean, being in the early access and seeing this game based on a game that I love, made by the people who made that game that I love, and then seeing them being able to use this new frontier to be able to go, hey everybody, here's the stuff we're making, this is what we're doing, and they'll play it, and they're as amused as we are.
Yeah.
Like you'd think a knob joke or a kind of a pun would cease being funny. I remember it was always funny seeing the cow shit himself before you ran him over in the first Carmageddon. Yeah. Never stopped getting funny. Even when I put the first one on here and played it, it was still hilarious. Hearing an old woman going, "I was in the war."
Is it a bit like the first level of Duke Nukem 3D, where you can go for a pee? Like,
it is. It's that kind of. And do you know what? Because that launched on PS Vita this week, and a lot of people have been writing reviews about that because it's the first time a whole generation has played Duke 3D. Yeah. And they're all kind of like astonished at how much interaction there is in this old school isometric shooter. And not to forget, this is one of the very first. This wasn't like after 5 years of first-person shooters. This was like in there with Doom and Quake. It was there. It's very, very
just after Doom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not long after.
And I mean, Doom had kind of walls that you could move, but 3D Realms did an absolute sterling job. Like just the quotes, the jokes, the fact that if you turn, like the pig cops would shit on the floor sometimes, you could tread in it and he'd moan about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was all very juvenile humour, but like you said, the interaction element of it is often overlooked because people kind of remember this very juvenile edge, which I can understand why. I mean,
which if you look at Duke Nukem Forever, which had the same sense of humour,
kind of fell flat.
But the interaction's not a new thing now. We expect it from games. So then it was like, whoa, what have I done?
Wow.
This is amazing. Like I've just found
a room within a secret room.
Yeah. And there was, this is incredible. And it is really nice to see these people playing a game that's now nearly 20 years old. Yeah. And they're like as amazed as we were as kids. But that juvenile humour, I think also was a very 90s thing. Like a lot of TV and comedy at that point. I mean, you think Bottom was one of the biggest things, and there's a lot of these programs that it was kind of a post-punk period.
But even down to things like, was it The Word with Terry Christian?
Yeah.
I'll do anything to get on TV. Yeah. Things like that. They were puerile, really.
Don't forget your toothbrush. The Girly Show. It was a time when everything was puerile. Yeah. The Farrelly brothers were the kings of cinema. I mean, it's insane now. If you think like all the fart and knob jokes that they would do, like the Something About Mary and Me, Myself and Irene and all those films. And then when Dumb and Dumber 2 comes out, suddenly it feels very dated. Yeah. The joke's not funny anymore. So it's interesting that kind of, but that's it. You have to kind of understand that Duke came out at a time where it didn't really seem puerile. It seemed the norm. It seemed the sense of humour of time. Yeah. So Carmageddon Reincarnation, just exceptional. I really can't wait for multiplayer to be added because I've never played it against real people.
That must be quite a fun game, multiplayer.
Well, I wonder how it works because obviously if you can constantly repair your car, then you can never end. So I assume it would only end when one person ran over the last pedestrian or somebody just did the laps. Yeah. Or they'd have a way of limiting the amount of regeneration you could do. Yeah. But either way, I just want to see like a Carmageddon death match. That'd be awesome. So yes, that's highly recommended. Even at the full, I think it's 20 quid for early access, but the fact that you get 4 games for that, and even the early access Carmageddon Reincarnation gives you trading cards as well. I think that's sterling value. It's £5 a game, isn't it?
It is. Very
No
good.
money. Well, actually, no. £6.66 game because TDR.
That's still not bad.
Fuck right off.
Especially if you've got multiplayer as well.
I said the F word.
It's me that got told of saying the F word.
Oh, okay.
The other half.
Okay.
Who's not impressed.
Yeah, so
Bollocks.
I've also been playing Destiny.
Oh, yeah, I did see, actually.
I started a new character as well.
Twisted your arm.
Well, I'm playing as a Warlock now.
Ooh.
Because I keep getting told that the Warlock is overpowered.
Apparently so.
I don't think she's overpowered. Well, mine's a she. It could be a he. But
Mine's a he. So.
I made one that
Really
looked a bit like my
opportunity
girlfriend.
podcast.
Well, I tend to make characters that look like me or my girlfriend. Well, my mind's eye version of me or my girlfriend at the time. That sounds terrible. Previously it was my wife. Now it's my girlfriend. So Sunset Overdrive is it's a punk version of her. In Destiny, it's a Warlock version of her. So same sort of haircut.
Yep.
Same ability to generally punch someone in the face quite hard, but without actually making contact. It's
True to life.
Yeah. I'm rattling through the levels.
Yeah.
I'm up to level 7 in one evening, which was
Pretty
quite
Good
good.
effort. Right.
I did make a slight mistake where, you've got your base powers where it's like a sun. There's like a
You've got void
purple,
damage or solar damage. Yeah.
Well, I started on void and then thought, I really want solar. So then changed, but then I was on level 6 missions with no grenades or powers or anything. So that made it a bit tricky.
Kind of got to wander around, probably patrolling Earth.
Well, I refused to do that. I just kept playing it without any abilities and then waited in front of a knock, which was very good until I did the Septus Prime mission with no power-ups whatsoever. Yeah. And the other two were like, what the hell is this? Why are you not? Well, I haven't got them yet. I do apologise, but, and
I'll just stand over here at the back.
No. Well, I fought and I was amazing. That sounds very egotistical. But I kind of ran across. It was getting down to low health. Whenever anything, if it's the spider tank thing or whatever, whenever anything gets to low health, I'll just run at it as hard as I can, throw in everything at it. Because even if I die, it's beaten. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So the spider tank earlier, and I think I actually ran in, hovered above it, threw a grenade onto it, landed on top as it exploded, and the blast killed me, which was great fun. I was dancing while it's dying. And then with Septus Prime, I've dropped into that section. There's like a trench, isn't there, in between the two platforms. I dropped into there, and there was a few enemies in there. So I pulled out a shotgun. I shotgunned 2 people, and I ran, sprinted, slid on the floor, went underneath it, shotgun, it exploded.
Beautiful.
Oh, it was one of those moments. I shouted Xbox record that at the camera, and then I forgot I turned off the voice functions temporarily because it kept getting interrupted by the fact I was talking to people. Yeah. So it didn't record that. And I was like, the one moment that was so amazing. And the game should have known, frankly, that was awesome. And it should have, I think you just look at one of the other people.
Should have created a brand new achievement.
Looking at one of them schlubs hiding behind a barrel using cover defense to shoot at an enemy from afar. What are they doing? You've got a shotgun, get in there and use it. But I'm really enjoying it now. Really enjoying it. I like the fact that is it Glimmer? The currency thing?
Currency,
that carries over between characters,
which
is quite nice. And I think I'm right in saying I can put something in storage and take it out as another character.
You certainly can. That's what I did with I started with a Hunter, got a bit bored of it, started a Warlock, transferred everything over.
So I'm thinking any good weapons I've got, I can give to a new character once I get to levels.
That's what I did with my legendary Scout.
And I think that is a feature of the game. One of my biggest criticisms of Destiny is it never makes it clear the great things it's got about it. Like the power-ups you've got which will instantly refill your ammo or do so that you can use those. But the game never tells you. There's never a point in the game, unless you go into that inventory screen,
again,
where it highlights up.
As we've discussed before, it just doesn't quite tell you these things.
It's like you should just know.
Yeah. And it's so easy to tell you these things. Yeah. And be like, oh, great, that's really cool. There is
a tutorial that basically he says, look up, get up, run through here, you need a gun, you do this, you do that, or whatever. But actually, for all these games where I complain, I guess, this game tells you that red is crouch. Well, red's always crouch. Just don't tell me it's crouch. Yeah. For once, I just wish there'd been a decent tutorial. Bit more information. Yeah, that just went, hi,
just a nudge.
You're here, this is this is this is it. Like, for example, I'm trying to get my Vanguard marks. So I went to the person who you can get spin metal from.
Yep.
Now I misunderstood that. I thought it meant if you collect 20 spin metal, you can trade it for a Vanguard mark. I've now not got any Vanguard marks, but I do have lots of spin metal.
See, that's why I use the Crucible. I'll get the Crucible marks to buy the materials. So I use the Vanguard marks for armour from Vanguard, obviously.
I didn't realise that, and so now I've got no Vanguard marks. But luckily I did it early on, so I didn't have a huge amount to start with. But it's this sort of thing where the game's just not clear on what to do. It's not ruining it for me. I'm really enjoying
You can
playing it.
I mean, you can claim 100 per week.
You
get to a point where you can do strikes and you'll join other people and you'll
This
soon
is
build
it.
back up.
Well, I did a public
Fortunately,
event and got gold on a public event at a level 4, which is great because it just happened to be wandering past an area where there was a level 32.
That's how it happens most of the
level
time.
32 level, it might have been 32. Is 32 possible?
Yeah, that's the highest cap.
He was
you need all the Crota raid and stuff. But
he was just, I'll tell you what, that's something else. The Crota people are in my game, even though I haven't got DLC, so every now and then. And there was, the gold event we beat, that he dropped a sword, a relic sword, which he went for, and I just picked it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I could just sense as soon as I picked it up, like, oh shit, he did all the work. And then I just ran into the hive shit that was near it. I just chopped everybody. It was like, and then it exploded. It started shaking. I was like, what? And it exploded. I thought, well, I've really wasted that. But it was great. Yeah. Did like that.
But then there are bounties around that sort.
Yeah, but I like the fact that it gave me a taste of the sort of challenge I'll be fighting. It kind of had a bit of the story already creeping in, like this guy's here and he's looking at Earth.
His minions are appearing on
the
moon.
I did like that. I did see one where the treasure pod was there and I just took it and then it went, the eyes of Krotos have seen your greed, and then loads of people appeared and there was no way. I was level 6 and I had a very rubbish gun. I had everything I shot was just no damage at all. And I was like, oh, this is not good. Every time I died, I respawned right next to them and they killed me again. And they pushed me a little bit further back, but they still saw me. And I was thinking, oh, just look. So I ran away. But no, I really like it. And, I'm not going to get the 360 version. I have decided if it comes out for about a tenner, then I will. But I think I need to concentrate on the one I bought at full whack rather than going, you know what, leave it on the shelf. Let's buy another one that I can play with people. But yeah, if the opportunity arises, I will get it. But I'm glad I went back to it. I'm glad I bought it again. And, I think as we go forward, there'll be more. Postman Gav keeps promising a game. Yeah. Never happened. Useless. So this is it. I slate him on the show. People go, oh, you're so mean to Gav. He said 9 o'clock. He said he'd make that game. No. Nothing.
But I'm glad we've gone back to it. As I said, it's a lot of fun. It's a very Marmite game, it seems. A lot of people are down on it. They slate Bungie. I can understand some of the concerns, but I love it. I think it's a great social game. As you said, you got involved in a gold tier or a public event. Yeah. You're a level 4. This guy's a level 32. That's brilliant. It brings all these people together. Other people just randomly appear, or sometimes you just end up on your own. Yeah. But that's part of the beauty of it.
And that's it. I mean, one of the public events I got gold, I was quite lucky. It was just one where you have to upload satellite data. So you just have to stand close to it. Yep. So for me, the guys were saying, look, just stay behind it. We'll fight. You just stay close to it. Yep. And so they were dying and then respawning and running in. I just had to keep hiding as much as possible. And I was throwing grenades everywhere. And I actually played a role that was helpful without, it didn't matter what my level was. It's like, that's the thing. He's a very good leveler. You can all contribute in a way, yeah. So, but then I think that's as much the players as it is the game. Like,
certainly,
as we were talking about last week, or the week before, well, it was last week because we did 2 episodes in 1 week. But where we were saying that it's a far more sociable game. Yeah. The competitive edge to it, the Crucible stuff, I'm not enjoying. I don't enjoy the fact that somebody who has better kit than you will have an advantage straight away. I don't enjoy that. I understand the modes. There's that mode, isn't there, where if you're a level 32, you will dominate because
Iron Banner. Yeah, that's.
I understand that because that is for people who want the challenge of it. But the reason I really like Plants vs Zombies is it has modes where it is just a complete level field. Yeah. So regardless of everything.
I mean, Crucible's supposed to be leveled out anyway to stop it being a complete domination by that one guy who's maxed everything.
Doesn't work very well, does it?
Yeah. It's strange. I just need to get. I've been on teams who are on the receiving end of playing against a team of good players, and equally I've been on part of a team surrounded by good players who I've ridden on their coattails. I'm not afraid to admit it, but sometimes it can be a little unbalanced, especially with things like Control, where you've got to capture the zones because people get to know the maps very quickly. They're not big maps. They're nice and easy, which is great because they're nice and easy to learn the basics. And then you start to learn the in-depth tunnels, which is beautiful. And I sort of dip in and out of Crucible a little bit. I can't play for too long because, like you, I start to get frustrated. Yeah. But a couple of games here and there, a couple of bounties. It's a nice.
Again, I mean, I think it's one of those things for me. It just seems a complete polar opposite to the main game. or the main body of the game. Because actually, what part of the game do you say is the main bit? Is it the story? Is it just the co-op? Is it the fact that you're a guardian or whatever? I am finding Bill Nye a bit annoying now. Going through all his rubbish again. Until he comes back, I am the one who speaks for... No, you're not. You're just a man in a mask. Take your mask off. Who do you think you are?
He stands at his desk all the time.
He does nothing.
Got anything cool? Got another Warlock bomb. That's all you've ever had. Sort it out.
Sitting there. And I do like the fact that the people in the tower are so dedicated to their job they never move. Ever.
Yeah.
Apart from that one guy who occasionally drops in where you can exchange items with him and then disappears for a while. Yeah. He's the only one who seems to have a life anywhere else.
I don't think
he's the most useful person in the tower, and yet he's nearly never there. And yet that woman who you can occasionally just get a slightly different coloured ship, she just sits on that desk all the time.
She's the shipwright. What happens if I bring my ship back with a bullet hole in it? She'd go, it'll be fine.
Well, they had a gunsmith, don't they? That you can buy guns from. I always thought that was a bit annoying he wasn't a weaponsmith. Because I know he pretty much just sells guns, but I think that's still a weaponsmith. I think that's what your job title is.
Wow.
Because she's a shipwright, not like a vehicle retailer, whatever. I don't know. It just seemed a bit unfair on the weaponsmith.
True. Suggested
he was only good at one thing.
Wow.
Although, to be honest, he does sell substandard weaponry.
He does.
I've found better ones lying on the floor than what he sells.
You will.
So, does he upgrade? Does he get better weapons at any point? Or can you just get them from like the Vanguard marks from your people later?
Depends what you mean by better at any point, because there was some stuff I bought from him when I started my Warlock, which I could only use from, say, level 12.
Green, is that uncommon green?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Do they ever get more than uncommon?
Not to my knowledge.
No. See what's the point?
Or maybe I may have bought one blue rare weapon from him. I just on the refresh. But
worry that those
you so quickly pick things up from drops, especially if you level up, because then these things
don't seem to mirror your needs. That's the thing. It's like
it's like they're there to help you.
Well, you've been in my shop.
10 of
right? If you came in my shop and I just said, okay, right, what do you want? And you went, I'd like Game of Thrones Series 1 and 2. I go, yeah, there's Game of Thrones Series 1 and 2. And then you came in and went Game of Thrones Series 3. I go, sorry, you can only find it outside on the road.
If you kill that man walking fast, you might be lucky.
And he might drop it. And if you get it before somebody else does, then it's yours. And that Game of Thrones Series 5 that's out in a couple of months, you're only going to be able to get that if you put 100 hours in this combative arena over there. It's just mental. It doesn't translate well. Then again, I suppose most games don't translate well to the world of high street retail.
Probably not.
No. But yeah, so no, I'm quite enjoying Destiny now. I found myself, I was supposed to be tidying up in here, which you're sat in my bedroom right now. It is reasonably tidy as far as things go. I've got a lot of Christmas stuff along the top, including my new Assassin's Creed figurine, who is no longer holding his sword because he fell off and the sword snapped. So, if it was a figure from Broken Sword, that would have been very clever.
That would have been perfect.
Because that was set in France. But, no. So then I've got my other two Assassins. One's got a carry bag on his head, which is very unsafe. And I'm a Joker Batman loot crate. But yeah, so my room is like it should be nice and tidy, and I've got too much stuff. I need a display case or some shelves. But while tidying, I kept thinking, I'll just do one more mission. I'll just do one more story mission. Only a story mission. And then I had a bounty for doing 6 patrol missions. Yeah. I went, well, I'll just do these. I'll get that one bounty.
Whiz through them.
And 8 hours later, I was still surrounded by filth. It was good fun, and I'd need to put a bit more effort into that. So yeah, that's pretty much my game of the week, with the exception of my new 3DS, which we will talk about later because we've got some questions from real people.
Oh,
well, not that you're not a real person. But you could have some questions I don't know about, so you might be able to spring them on me. Okay. But we'll get to that. As you can see on the running order, we need to have a little diversion
into the world of running order.
I know. Mine's even got as you see, mine's got notes on it. I actually on here right now. I've got what the GPU clock speed of the new 3DS is. I actually have that written down because I wouldn't remember.
No.
So let's move on to the next section of the show, which is all about... Pause for a second. I need to just shift in my chair. I can edit that, you see. But if I don't fidget now, we'll get into Avengers, and then I'm going to put my laptop down off my leg, because I don't really need it there. I can hold my piece of paper there. Right. So, which is all about...
Avengers Age of Ultron. Because we got a new trailer. Yay!
The UK trailer is what they're calling it.
UK trailer.
Which means it's going to have more intellectual stuff.
And more tea.
Yeah. and a bit more of an English actor in the trailer. Andy Serkis is English, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah, of course he is. What am I talking about?
But not a great deal more, to be fair. It's just him from the left rather than from the right, as we had in the first major trailer.
But it does mean we can slowly work on our Andy Serkis model kit.
True.
Yeah, and know it's accurate.
But that's one thing, as you mentioned, it showed, I say, more of Andy Serkis, basically the same shot from the different side, but everybody seems to have now decided he is Ulysses Claw, the Black Panther's
which
nemesis.
Certainly makes sense. I mean, the whole setting of it does seem to be leading towards Black Panther. As
well, as a standalone movie in 2 years, 2017.
Yeah, so it's because he's one of those characters who isn't really a massive Marvel character to the non-Marvel fans, but obviously if you're a Marvel fan, you know exactly who he is.
I think that's a good thing though, because a lot of people didn't know Guardians of the Galaxy particularly well, so they went in with, I don't say low expectations, because a lot of people expect
no expectations. I think that's the thing. You have no expectation because
no preconceived idea.
Because which is what we discussed in a car park after watching the film. We were walking through it, for listeners. We don't just hang around in car parks. I live in one. But we did say that if you go to see an Incredible Hulk movie, you in your head have an image of what the Hulk is and
there's
how he
already
behaves.
2 recent films.
Plus the cartoons that you might have seen, plus any of the toys or any games you've played or whatever, you have in your head a very, very clear. I mean, like some people complain he doesn't have purple shorts in all the films. It's like, well, that's not really the only thing you need to worry about when it comes.
That's not all it is, alright?
And with Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, I've now been reading some more of the Guardians of the Galaxy, comics, and the film versions are very different. I mean, they're very softened down compared to how violent and kind of, almost again a bit kind of punk and a bit puerile. It's very good. They're very all Marvel stuff that diverts off into things. Very good. But this is with the talking dog Cosmo. Is it Cosmo the dog? Yeah. Who's sending them off on missions and stuff. It was just I'm enjoying reading it, but it's kind of like I'm glad in a way that Marvel didn't make a bigger deal of releasing comics first and say here's some comics to read before this film comes out. Because people will look at it and go, what the hell is this? You've got talking animals and a tree and there's no way that'll work. And then when you watch it, they sell it automatically. I think with Black Panther, the problem with Black Panther it's going to have is we're all aware of Africa.
Yeah.
And
we're all aware of Africa. Thank you, Bob Geldof.
Yeah, Bob Geldof's work. If it really, Marvel should have tied him in and done Marvel Aid 30.
Give him all the fucking money.
Yeah. But, you said it now. But that was paraphrasing. You're okay.
Paraphrasing Bob Geldof.
But no, I do think the Black Panther, I enjoy the stories of Black Panther. I liked it when he got married to that other Marvel character, which I won't say in case it's going to make it in, because at the moment it shouldn't make it in, because the rights are held by 2 different companies. Yeah. So there's a possibility that won't happen. But I think that would be a major mistake if they don't have that union at some point, because there's a lot of storyline comes from that.
Given the proposed schedule, I wonder how these things will pan out.
Yeah, especially with Civil War as well, because the Civil War, anything with Black Panther in Civil War has to include his second character. But it's Storm. She's the only other major black character. I suppose you have to they're obviously gonna end up finding each other. But she was from Africa originally, wasn't she? I think.
Yeah, was she Egyptian?
I can't remember. I'm probably from the rainforest areas because of the rain there, which it never flows. But so no, rivers never flow.
But anyway,
but there is lots of rain. So so it's theoretically it could all be set in and around the home of Black Panther, which is
Wakandan.
I never know how to say that. I'm guessing.
I'm assuming I'm correct.
If the fanboys are going to get cross, it's going to be at you.
Well, that's fine.
But so a lot of it does kind of look kind of African, revolutionary.
You call it fictitious African nation. Yeah. And I've already seen people online theorising that Ultron will go there to mine the vibranium, they reckon.
Yeah.
To make his indestructible shell and all this sort of stuff. And I'm just quite excited for this story. It's a bit darker than the first one.
Yeah.
I like that thing. And the Age of Ultron story was dark.
Yeah.
He basically kicks everyone's ass.
Yeah. And it's also just kind of, I think what a lot of people will be surprised, and this is the only thing the trailer does bother me, is it does kind of have a DC tone.
Bleak.
Yeah. Whereas with Marvel, the reason I loved Marvel as a kid, it was very bright colours. It was fun. It was ridiculous. It was over top. It was comic book.
Yeah.
The Age of Ultron stuff was part of those kind of storylines that Marvel do every now and then. Civil War included as well. I mean, obviously, that's if they're heading
the
that
other
direction.
thing with this film being bleak, because as things move forward, it's going to be kind of bleak as well.
And there's every now and then they do it. Now, the thing with Civil War that saved it for me was the fact that it was such a huge storyline that even the bleak moments were balanced by the fact that it was just something that it was a storyline that was ongoing and massive, but at the same time it was just a way of bringing everything into one timeline. With Age of Ultron, it was pretty much very much an Avengers thing. And for obviously anybody who doesn't know, and we're not really going to do spoilers, I don't think, because it's a book, but Tony Stark essentially creates Ultron as a way of defending the world.
Isn't it Hank Pym in the original comic book?
Well, the film's going to be Tony Stark, isn't it? So so the idea is this, he can't do it anymore. We've already seen the remote suits in Iron Man 3. So that kind of leads towards this idea of a mechanized world peacekeeper. There's talk of the UN being quite heavily involved in the new film because Disney Infinity, the Avengers playset, has UN soldiers as unlockable characters. So which again would fit in with this idea of a warring nation. So whether he provides them for the UN or whatever, we don't know. And obviously we don't want to know too much because it's
kind of spoils
it. The point is Ultron realizes that the biggest threat to the world is people. And that's not a good, that's kind of a very Hitler-y way of looking at things.
It's
like, this world would be okay if it wasn't for you people. And with Ultron, he's not being too picky. It's just you people. And he does mean everyone, not just the people of Louisiana.
So I loved Ultron as a villain in the book.
I love the fact they've got, James Spader as his voice. Because he is a creepy sounding bloke. And I really did this trailer I'm not that impressed with. I liked the Pinocchio trailer where he was
brilliant
doing the song.
Trailer.
It was
kind of the movable mouth. I liked it when it was sort of that stone-faced comic book one. I'm not keen. Same as I wasn't with Transformers. I don't like the movable mouth.
No, but then would it have moved in the comic books?
Well, maybe it has some sort of plate. No. I just don't like the way.
We see with Transformers, he always had Optimus always had a guard. Yeah. So there was a bit of movement, but that worked because they could syndicate for any language.
Yeah.
With a comic book, if you're a robot, you kind of look solid. Like Iron Man is just a solid bit.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have a great big flappy jaw. Whereas this one, it's kind of like more of a melted face. It's like a kind of.
I don't know. It was a little bit too human for my liking. That may sound weird.
But then again, if it was me and I was creating a machine that was making itself more and more into this kind of person as such, I'd probably, that's where I would go. I'd want to be, because it would be scarier for me if somebody just came and they were able to open the mouth and inside just those nanotech things just go, that would be creepy. But the Pinocchio trailer I thought was very good because it summed up Ultron as a character perfectly.
Yeah. Oh yes, beautifully.
And it was also just delivered with a really horrible, creepy, sinister tone. Like, here's a guy who can beat the Avengers.
Yeah.
That's the point. Not just an Avenger, but the Avengers. Full stop.
Yeah.
And that's something that Loki couldn't do with an army. So.
A space army with giant space whales. Yeah.
But then again, they had a Hulk. And now the Hulk is going to be fighting the Hulkbuster, which is obviously going to be the big fan moment of the film.
It's going to be one of the key set pieces to the whole thing.
Well, they've, on the Avengers, not the Avengers, on Winter Soldier Blu-ray, I saw the little making of
we watched
it on there, and they showed just the Hulkbuster fist prop, which is huge. And then when you start to think, actually, I mean, the new trailer does show the scale between Hulk and Hulkbuster a lot better because he is a lot bigger.
Yeah.
A lot of people said in Iron Man 3 there was the powerlifter suit, which smashed through a load of shipping crates. They're like, oh, it's a Hulkbuster. It's like, no, that's not big enough to be a Hulkbuster. There were different suits. And then when this kind of, it was there, it had a rocket powered fist and everything else that you've kind of seen in the books. It's, this is all going to be Tony potentially being the weak link and the flawed hero. And
but that was the
he always
point
has
of a
been,
lot of the books, demon in a bottle and things.
Yeah, and he's he is the person who's, although the Hulk you look at and think, well, he's the wild card. Yeah, he's the one who's learned to control it. Tony's the one who's rapidly losing control, left, right, and centre.
Unraveling,
which
Iron
Man 3 was all about,
precisely.
And they managed to do almost a demon in a bottle storyline without having to do the demon in a bottle storyline. They kind of touched on that a little bit with Iron Man 2. although that was a messy film. Iron Man 3, I think, was brilliant. I think that
Yeah.
kind of summed it up perfectly. Just this very weary man who, no matter how hard he tries, he can't escape who he is.
Yeah.
And so with this one, obviously it's not just who he is, but also what he's created. And, yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal film.
I'm more excited for Age of Ultron than I am for Star Wars.
I think that's reasonable. But then we've had 3 very average Star Wars films.
We have.
So, you know.
But in the same sense, it's Star Wars, but the Star Wars trailers didn't wow me. I was
No.
extremely underwhelmed.
I think I'll be more surprised by Star Wars being exceptional than I would Avengers being exceptional. Though.
Yeah.
I have very high expectations for Avengers, but very low expectations for Star Wars. Even though I like the Star Trek
bitten a little bit.
new breaks. So I think I'm going to enjoy Star Wars more based on what I expect to enjoy it. Yeah. Whereas Avengers has set a very high bar. Yeah. The Winter Soldier, for me, has set that massive bar. Guardians is a side thing. You can't compare any of the mainstream Marvel movies to, same as you won't be able to put Ant-Man in that thing. Yeah. Ant-Man only exists to put him into the Avengers at a later point.
Yeah.
And even then, the Ant-Man trailer, I have a lot of issues with, because it seems to be, because
it
obviously
didn't show me enough to really
we know that Edgar Wright was making it and then left. And I wonder how much of the movie isn't Edgar Wright's film, because
you wonder why he left.
There's a few jokes in inverted commas that really fall flat. Paul Rudd is a funny guy, and he seemed to be delivering them with a very serious nature, but not funny.
Yeah.
It was.
I don't. As I said, the trailer didn't really show me enough to form a.
And Hank Pym is obviously now. Michael Douglas's character is Hank Pym, and he's the second guy.
Scott Lang.
Yeah. So Hank Pym was always a very dodgy Marvel character, where he's kind of beating up
because he was flawed as well. I think.
Yeah, and I think
especially the thing I always loved. Pym came after, as in the comic books, it was he who created Ultron. So I always liked how flawed and how guilty he felt. Yeah. Whenever a sort of Ultron came along, because he felt so responsible.
And he's. I guess
it's going to be the same for Tony Stark in Age of Ultron.
I know, because they did the domestic violence thing as well, where he hit Wasp and beat her up, and it was kind of. So I do wonder how much of that version of Pym will be because Michael Douglas could play that
beautifully. Yeah.
So because the trailer suggests he's this kindly old man who's handing this power down. But then the bit that annoys me about that is we've had no reference to Ant-Man. Now, if he's giving the power to somebody, surely that hero has existed for all this time, so why no mention until now? Yeah. So that I find a little bit odd. Why was he not there during the Battle of New York? So a lot of people said, well, why didn't Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four? Well, licensing issues. That's why they weren't there.
But they've talked about with Spider-Man anyway.
Yeah. Whereas with Ant-Man, he should have been. And so it's those little things I want them to explain reasonably, whether it's he's been out of action for 10 years or whatever, and he's now at the point where he sees a threat to the world, so wants that he thinks it's time for a new Ant-Man, because he's obviously older than the character was in the books.
I think they can explain it away, you know.
But at the same time, I think there's plenty of room for him to do a Robert Redford style role from Winter Soldier, which won't say much more than that. But again, an actor who has got it in him to not know which side of the line you're on.
Play either the good or the bad.
But I think it's a very risky, because again, like we said with Guardians, like we said with kind of that expectation thing, I think Ant-Man doesn't have the fan base in terms of knowledge of him.
I think Ant-Man and Black Panther could be real sleeper hits.
And Doctor Strange as well, because that's a little bit longer.
Looking forward to that one.
But again, it's now Marvel have opened the door.
Glue film for me.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, because it can tie together so many ideas of even more than Guardians did, perhaps, or expand what Guardians did with pan-galaxy war and fights and battles, and even into parallel universes and things like that. It's just such a pivotal film, I think. That could really set a tone for a lot.
It's great that Marvel have now, because of the popularity, they've used their big franchises to throw open a door, and now they've said, hey, we've got all these other characters. You know, it's like the Marvel are doing the Troy McClure thing. You might remember us from such films as The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man. And now we're here with this Doctor Strange, who's a man who lives in a house in New York and he does magic. And it's like, what? But but he can open portals into other dimensions. Yeah. Ooh. Right.
Well, I was trying to explain Doctor Strange to somebody at work, because he's got into the films. It's like, how do you explain it without sounding like a complete lunatic or making it sound
the early versions of them were stupid. I mean, that's the thing. Comic book movies or comic characters went at original inception. I mean, you look at the Joker.
Yeah.
Right. At the time that the comic Code Authority started regulating comic books, he wasn't a criminal anymore. In the 40s and 50s, when he first kind of kicked in, he was just a street criminal dressed as a clown. He was shooting people and killing people and blowing people up. Then the Comics Code Authority came along and you couldn't do that anymore. Yeah. So he was then just a bloke dressed as a clown who went around kind of playing pranks on people. That was the Joker for 15 years. And then it came around and it was resty. They just stopped using him because it was a ridiculous villain. He's not a villain. He couldn't do what the Joker did, so therefore he didn't exist.
Did it do pop your balloon?
Yeah. And it's like, hey! Ooh. And then obviously then when you get past it, you get stuff like Killing Joke and everything's back to normal. Yeah. But, with Marvel, like a lot of their characters are absolutely frankly ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean like the Spider-Ham, Spider-Pig.
Simpsons.
No, there was a Spider-Man alternate universe where he was a pig. And I can't remember, I think it was Spider-Ham. I'm sure that was his name. Okay. And it was just this weird like chibi version, and they kind of put him into the comics a little bit, and they were like, look, this is a weird thing. Look at that. And
How's the
like,
duck?
What? Yeah. I mean, but when they came out, they weren't done in like God, this is weird. It was like, there's a duck.
Yeah.
And he smoked cigars. And it was at a time when that's normal, because you were watching Disney cartoons at the cinema. Every time you watched a film, there'd be a talking duck or a talking rabbit or a talking pig. So these talking animal stuff kind of just fed in. It was the humour and the characters. And then sort of they kept them on a little bit, but then developed it. And then you just get these very colourful, cartoony characters, which now obviously have been given, thanks to writers like Grant Morrison and Alan Moore and anybody else, any of the great writers whose names have now just disappeared altogether. Mark Miller as well. I mean, without Mark Miller, there wouldn't have been Civil War. That's, well, maybe, but I doubt it would have been as good. I think he's the sort of person who would write something that other people wouldn't necessarily have written.
Yeah.
And so, you've now got those people who could take these characters who, back in the 70s, were very colourful, flamboyant, fun characters for kids, and are now able to say, well, actually, people who like these are now in their 20s, so we can change this a little bit. And kids nowadays are
character to an adult level.
And like we were talking about Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is a very mature comic movie. It's not dark in any way. I mean, it suggests some horrible things. The Winter Soldier program is very, very dark, but they do kind of skirt around that a little bit. You just have to understand why he's like he is. And so they do put that in. And, but then beyond that, you've got this maturity of the storyline.
I mean, with the Winter Soldier storyline, with the algorithm to pick out troublemakers effectively.
Yeah.
And you look at, the events of the past week, and now we've got, greater powers to the UK security agencies and all this sort of stuff. And that undertone of the Winter Soldier, it's not that,
well, that's
not a million miles from
it's a political thriller that just happens to be set in a comic book world. Realistically,
people compared that film to films like All the President's Men. Yeah. That says something.
Yeah.
And rightly so.
Exactly. And that's the thing. With Avengers, I would like to see that tone continue. I think there's a kind of way it could, but at the same time we're talking about walking, talking robot armies. So it's going to be a bit
adult themes.
But then of course, the world has seen what's going on in Syria. Yeah. So unsettled Africa has been a mainstay of the last, well, it's been unsettled for decades, but the last 6 years it's been very well put. Since like kind of the big overthrow of Mubarak in Egypt. And that kind of knock-on effect that it had, and obviously Gaddafi being taken out and all
Egypt
that.
In the Middle East.
You've got this whole area where we're used to seeing wars there. So to set a film in there actually would be as realistic, even if it is in a fictional state. So yeah, it's certainly a darker trailer, and I look forward to May the 1st. Is it May the 1st? Yeah, I look forward to that
premiere or release date.
Hitting. I think I might have to go and see that opening weekend. I don't usually, but I've waited long enough.
I shall still probably stay true to my roots and go and see it at the local when the Lux.
Well, I'm hoping they're going to have it opening weekend.
I would be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, they got Hobbit, so fingers crossed. Right, so moving on. Oh, there's a thing on here about the Nintendo 3DS.
Yeah, desperate to talk about this.
Well, no, we've talked for a good nearly an hour, so I've done well.
Twitching your feet.
So here it is, Rob.
Christ, you whipped that out quick.
I think did I show you this last week? I didn't have it last week.
We had the images.
We had the images. Well,
looked
there
at
it actually is. Look at that.
It looks like 3DS.
It is exactly. That's what it is. It is a 3D. I wish I'd kept my old one, but luckily unfortunately I had to trade it in. So the big change is,
got one at home, Annabelle's one.
So obviously cartridge slot's gone.
Mm.
It's now on the bottom left hand side. So when you're holding it and you accidentally eject the cartridge, you can't do that anymore. So that's good. I've got the charging station here, look. Right? If you want to charge it, you just slot it in upside down like that. And those 3 Japanese symbols.
What do they actually mean? We weren't sure last week.
It's Nintendo. I can't remember what it actually means, but that is what the word is. It's like something like peace, love, and microtransactions. So essentially it is a 3DS. You've now got, instead of the 2 triggers, you've got 4 triggers on top, so these are slightly smaller. When you're playing Resident Evil Revelations, which is the one you use your circle pad for, that's aim your gun, that's fire your gun. Okay. And then you use, so that's your second little joystick, but it is so tiny. I mean, you have a little fiddle with that. It almost looks like a button, but
it's not a joystick.
But it works. It works right. It's got such a very small, minute range of movement. It doesn't need to be a full circle pad, because it's not a dual analog system. It's a case of giving you some sort of fine tune, and it's used for things like you're aiming down the sights of a gun. That's what you use to aim specifically where you want to aim. So it gives you very, very fine control, but most games don't use it that much. Super Smash Bros. Does. Any game that uses a circle pad, you can use that instead of the circle pad, which certainly saves on having that ridiculous big chunky circle pad thing on there. But it's not a huge jump up. I was expecting to be a bit more sticky, like a stick, rather than just a button that you can move sideways.
I'm not entirely convinced by it. I suppose I've not used it.
So stick the 3D on, Rob. Slide a slider up on the left hand side there.
Left-hand side,
right hand side rather. The volumes are left hand side on the screen there.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sorry,
so flick that right up. So you've got your 3D on. Now you'll notice in the sensor, the camera that looks at you, there's another little lens hole next to it. That is face tracking technology. Okay. So if you move the handheld in your hand slightly, so turn it to about 10-degree angle slowly, it will keep in 3D for you as long as possible. I mean, obviously it won't go.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
But as long as it can still see your face, you will be able to see 3D. So if you just gently kind of shake your hands a little as if you're on a bus, you don't lose the 3D. Which is a big thing, because that was one of the major issues for people using 3D in the past, is that as soon as you moved your hand even slightly,
the illusion was broken.
Exactly. So that is very, very good technology. It's, as far as I've ever seen, the most accurate 3D without glasses screen in terms of technology. Now when we went to the gadget show with Mature Gamer, there was a laptop that had a tracking system that saw where your eyes were looking. This does both your eyes and your entire face to know where you're looking at the time, so it adjusts. And if you turn it slowly, you can actually see the screen filter a little bit, just moving around. So that's very clever. It's not for everyone, but it will certainly make me want to play 3D a little bit more. So that was kind of a nice little feature. Other than that, if you look at the back, you've got these like 2 screws in the back. On the back
on the bottom, on the actual bottom, yep.
So you undo those, you can take that faceplate off and the top faceplate, replace those.
Didn't you get another faceplate with it?
I did. Right? With the Ambassador Edition, which,
was it Mario? Was it Smash Brothers?
Smash Brothers, yeah. It's like an etched looking Smash Brothers.
It was only a week ago.
It's currently up on top of the wardrobe there, still sealed in its packet, and I'm going to leave it there until I'm absolutely certain it is being released for sale. Because if it's not, I might put it on eBay. Because I don't really like Mario that much. Said the Nintendo fanboy. But we've got some questions, haven't we, from Twitter. So we'll start off with Colm, who sent me the stamps. How good is the 3D? Well, I think we can both say 3D is better than it's ever been. It's still not the most important thing about the console. The console will always be the games, but it is a very nice
I think it's refined.
Yeah,
is the word I would use, especially as you said with the
and you don't
facial tracking, because you say perfect example. You said on the bus or on the tube.
That's the whole point. Mobile gaming and static 3D don't really go well together. No. So, given you the fact you don't have to put any glasses on, and you can still see a really good 3D image, as far as I'm concerned, that's as good as it's ever going to get in that format for that price. Because you have to remember, this is a device that costs about 150 quid, and that's a very good bit of kit for the price.
Yeah.
Clarky Snap, if you don't know who he is, he's a host of Bits Pod, which is Bits and PCs, has renamed itself on Twitter, so you can follow them. Is the 3D tracking as good as it's been advertised?
I think it's pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah. It's hard to find fault with it. It's something they didn't have to do, but they clearly spotted a fault with it.
Yeah.
And have
again, we come back to the
good
example,
technology.
because you're not going to make massively violent twists where you end up moving the 3DS 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's just for comfort while playing. It doesn't affect your eyes too badly. Now, the next question is the screen acceptably larger that won't have him pining for a new 3DS XL? Now, I'll have to say, when I ordered this, I was a bit confused because I didn't realise they were making a new 3DS and a new 3DS XL. So I'd read an article where they were saying about the screen size is exactly the same, the processor's quicker. So I thought, it's just one product. Why on earth would they bring out a smaller version now? Well, they are. Yeah. So that's, for me, and to you, Clark, I have to say, if you are willing to wait for the XL. We've seen a poster today being leaked that suggests about the 13th, was it, of February? 13th or 16th of February. Yeah. Which should be the North American release date. So we can expect it here about March, I would imagine. They usually leave a bit of a gap. So March, April time. But you might be able to import in. It is also worth remembering why you can get these in Japan. They are completely region locked now. So you can only play, obviously, games from your region. Yeah. So yeah, the screen isn't obviously any bigger than a 3DS screen. I think it's marginally bigger. The reason I'm not too annoyed is when you go to the XL, and I don't know if you ever played on my XL, but it doesn't have the resolution doesn't increase, it just blows it up. Ooh. So it kind of goes a bit fuzzy. So I was quite amazed at how sharp these images looked in comparison to XL. So it was quite nice that it actually looked a better quality screen. But I don't think Clarky needs to rush out. Is the analog nub any good? Which is called the C button, actually. The C stick, rather. I don't think it's very good. It's too small. It moves a little tiny bit, but it does what it does. It's nice to have it there. It's nice not to have to buy an accessory to do something it was designed to do, but it's not the most comfortable of things to use. But then, bear in mind, you're only going to use it for 1 in 10 games. Does it matter? Yeah. It's out of the way. It's not
going to interfere with playing. I don't think.
Just to highlight.
Tinkering with it now.
We're talking, Robbie's playing with it, just sort of familiarise himself because it's the first time he's seen one. So he's not just making all this up as he goes along. He's got it in his hand. He seems to be playing around with it nicely.
Accessible for the games you need it for, but it's not obtrusive when you don't.
No.
Just
the only thing I'm interested in is how many games now are going to require that. And at the moment, I think this next question here is, does the nub work with Circle Pad Pro games? Yes, it does. All of them are supported by it. It makes me wonder whether if you've got the Circle Pad Pro, you'll still be able to play the games that are for the new 3DS. Because theoretically, that could be it. However, I have been doing some actual hard technology research on this. Because I was wondering whether the Circle Pad Pro games, obviously, if they bring out a new game that supports it, would that work backwards? Because they did say there'd be some games that would only work on this. And I thought, is that because of an accessory? It might be that actually they won't be able to run on the other ones because the video memory for this one is 10 megabytes, whereas the last 3DS consoles were 6 meg. So straight away there, you've got a step up. The GPU clock speed of this one, 266 megahertz compared to 133. So it's twice the speed. Yep. Although that's not twice the speed, is it? Technically, because it kind of goes
up. It's more powerful.
But it's more powerful. And the RAM, there's 256 meg of RAM compared to 128 in the old ones.
So it's almost like a mini generation.
It is a generation up without losing what made it what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as big a leap as the Wii to the Wii U in the sense of rapidly changing technology. What they've done is kept, and I think maybe the Wii U could have spoiled them a little bit. They did probably have a more ambitious plan for the new 3DS, but then people were like, I don't like this tablet. I want it to be more like the Wii. Why is it not more like the Wii?
Yeah.
So
I like this. This is. I must admit, I'm not a big 3DS player. This is comfortable.
Yeah.
We've talked about the 3D. That works nicely.
It is
very comfortable.
And do you know, it looks like and it feels like a Nintendo product.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to Smiler on
Does
Twitter,
it feel like a Nintendo product?
who said, what could Nintendo do to make it feel more premium? Because he says he often, with Nintendo products, he feels it underwhelmed with the quality.
Okay.
And I think if you compare that to say, where has it gone? Is it in this drawer? No, that's all underwear. I don't know where it's gone.
Compare the new 3DS to my underpants, you'll find it is very technologically advanced.
So, yeah, essentially, I was going to give you the Vita, which would have given you an idea to sort of say, I've used the Vita. But I mean, that's weighty. It's a very good quality screen, really sharp visuals, but it cost 300 quid when it came out. This cost, when it came out, 145, 150. Yeah. So, I mean, if you buy something at half the price, you can't expect that sort of quality.
Yeah, you're not comparing like for like.
No, and I think with Nintendo, they've never been technology leaders. They've been gameplay champions.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about Mario Kart, it's no massive step in the next direction, but it's still what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted a Mario Kart game. So I think, obviously, in terms of Nintendo making a quality product, the only way they could do it would be to change everything that they stand for, really, and stop making something that's affordable for the whole family and make something that suddenly becomes a bit
The other thing
elitist.
is, I'm not picking holes in the question, but I think what one person's idea of premium tech is can differ from the next person.
Well, I mean,
sometimes.
if you look at this, though, I mean, like I said, the thing with Nintendo is you can look at a lot of their games and think, if you take away the HD shine of Mario Kart 8, for example, it's just Mario Kart.
Yeah, of course it is.
The step up is only the shine.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because the controls on that big tablet are awful. Most people prefer to play it on a normal controller.
Yeah.
So, really, it is that HD leap. New Super Mario Bros. It's exactly the same game as New Super Mario Bros. On the Wii.
Yeah.
But with tablet controls and shiny graphics. So I think, Nintendo are always a generation behind, really, with technology and build quality and stuff.
Focus on
But
different...
I think it allows them to be cheaper. That's the point. They can get... I mean, like, the screen quality on there is as good as it needs to be for that machine. But if that was the screen quality of the PS Vita, people would refuse to pay the price that Sony wanted for a Vita.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It comes down to what would people be prepared to pay. And Nintendo's core market is people who don't want to spend a fortune. They want a certain line of games in a handheld that fits in your pocket. So, good question. But I think if you're underwhelmed by what Nintendo do, you're always going to be underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because clearly... It's kind of the two aren't
it's
a
the
good
mini
bedfellows.
the mini generational step. It's not a massive leap on
which
the
is
old 3DS.
I think why they've also kept the name. It is a new 3DS, but it's not like a 5DS or 6DS or anything like that.
It's a small step forward rather than a revolution.
Synaptic Flare has sent the question: how does screen resolution compare to the old 3DS, which obviously we've said is pretty much identical. Plus he said some rubbish about the Warlock in Destiny being overpowered. Well, that's just
He's been on about his Hunter Master Race thing today, and I don't know. The last guy all went on about Master Races. It didn't end well for him.
No. And he's also asked if it's suitable for a 5/6-year-old. Now, I hope that is /6-year-old, not 516-year-old, which would suggest that he's now, as part of his Master Race, he's raised the dead. And, but no.
He seems to have a lot of spare time. I don't know.
I would say, with anything Nintendo, it's always suitable for kids.
Yeah.
However, we have seen, over the last couple of years, a lot of warnings from Nintendo about people under 7, I think it is, using the 3D, developing eyesight and stuff like that. Now, I don't know whether the stabilised 3D would be less affecting to the eye. Because what they were saying was when it goes blurry, the eyes overcompensate. So if it doesn't go blurry as often, then theoretically, it'll go
depends how...
But I would always say...
Sure-handed your 5/6.
Well, my kids always play it with the slider off. And
I've
it's
got to be honest,
the same
I
thing.
think I probably would personally.
It's the same console. It's just you're losing a certain element to it. So yes, it's perfectly suitable, but I don't see anything in there that you wouldn't reasonably need.
It's
just
the same principle again.
Get a regular 3DS is at the moment about 79 quid. They're starting to sell them off. I saw on Amazon they're doing the ice white one for 79 quid today. That's going to be 159.99, I believe, the X or the regular, and then I think 190 for the XL when it launches. So yeah, it's easy to recommend because I like it.
Yeah.
But there's not much in there that a 5 or 6-year-old would appreciate in a step up.
Probably not.
So
I don't think, in terms of the step up, I don't think there's anything different for a 5 or 6-year-old.
No. The only thing that would be different is battery life, because kids do like to play things until their batteries run out. I've also done some research into that, Rob, and I saved it for when we talked about this question because I thought I'd bring it in. At the moment, if you play a regular 3DS game, depending on whether you've got the brightness right up or whatever, 3.5 to 7 hours gameplay compared to up to 6 hours on the last one.
So you might get a little bit more juice out of it.
Yeah. If you're playing DS games, which a lot of kids do, because you're obviously compatible with DS, that'll go up to 12 hours, which is quite good.
That's very good.
Yeah, because they don't charge stuff. So that's a whole weekend, really, of gaming. But I was quite impressed. But it's a good piece of kit. I don't regret. Well, actually, as I said in the car together, I do have a big regret, which is I wish I'd got the XL.
Yeah.
If I knew I was getting a smaller one, and I knew it was coming out in February, which we didn't until today. It was supposed to be April. I mean, it still might be April here, but if I'd have known I had to wait 5 weeks, and I could have had a bigger one for not much more money, because I paid 180 for that one.
This is a comfortable size. Maybe because I've got small girls.
I think it's just because at the moment I'm still, it's like I've had a big black 3DS XL, and frankly, once you've had that, it's hard to go back. Wow. But I think it'll adjust nicely. But yeah, so it's a good thing. Obviously, if you're listening, you got any other questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'll go on and on about it quite happily. But for now, we will move on to our next section, which I'll let Rob take lead of. Competitive gaming, Rob.
Yes, there is a show, it will have been on Radio 5 Live by now, by the time the podcast goes out, about competitive gaming. And it was an advert I heard while I was driving around in my car. I must confess I didn't listen particularly closely to the finer details, but it just set the little cogs go around in my mind about the idea of competitive gaming, because I suppose even going back to things like Games Master, there used to be competition. You go back further than that, Pong was basically a competitive game. You had to get a higher score than the computer, the other person, whatever. And sort of, as I say, set the wheels in motion of where competitive gaming, as I'll call it a sport. Whether people agree with that or not is up to them, because people obviously have debates over the darts as a sport.
Exactly.
But it's kind of where things go, because we talked about Crucible earlier on with Destiny. Obviously, FIFA has a big online community. Halo, the new Halo game is out this year. Gears of War, and all these things, and it is a competitive.
We have big major league gaming events now,
and you get $1 million prizes.
Yeah,
it was something that, as I say, it sparked a little something in my mind about gaming as not just a pastime, but also as a competitive industry.
Yeah,
and whether people could make a living out of this, I suppose potentially.
Well, people do. I mean, you had Fatality, didn't you? It was the first proper pro game that people knew the name of. I mean, for me, I was just discussing this running order of a customer earlier. And he was saying about he'd seen that, I forget the makers of what game it was, but they were saying that competitive gaming should be an Olympic sport. Now, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I see gaming as on a par with poker, professional poker, because that is played in massive tournaments with huge stakes and huge prizes. It's kind of like, it's a game that can be played professionally, as opposed to necessarily something that's so competitive. Yeah. Because I think, for me with the Olympics, it's a physical event. So if it was Connect Sports or Acceler Runner from Nickel Hunt and Alan Zacconi, then maybe that would be it. Or Track and Field. That would be that was me shaking the joystick, but actually it was those for Track and Field. I think it's as a sport. I don't think it's a sport, but I think it's certainly something that will just keep growing, because you've got more and more people who now, I mean, when I was a kid, people wanted to either be a film star, a footballer, or a fireman, or an astronaut. So at the time, Challenger had just exploded and everybody wanted to be an astronaut all of a sudden.
Kids, eh?
I know, brilliant. Nothing like a disaster to spark the inspiration. Whereas now, there are people that think they can be YouTube stars or Let's Play kind of heroes or kind of pro gamers. And it is as reachable as anything else. If you've got the right ability to be a pro gamer, you can do it. If you've got the right personality to be a YouTuber, you can do it. Yeah. When I was at Eurogamer this year, the crowds around people who every week just sit in front of a camera and do like what we're doing now. Yeah. But to 12-year-old kids, we wouldn't do that, because that's just a bit creepy. It was a little bit weird when it was like kind of grown men. Well, I say grown men, they were 19-year-old boys, but they're men. Yeah. Just surrounded by a load of like 13,
tried as an adult.
12 and 13-year-old kids who were all like, It was a bit like Beatlemania, but on a small scale. Yeah. Very, very small scale. But again, these pro gamers, it hasn't really caught on here as much as I've seen in America. And also, like at Stockholm, I saw some sort of European tournament for Call of Duty.
I think in parts of Asia, well, Korea and things.
Well, Korea in particular, I mean, that's, but just like a StarCraft in Korea. Well, people just dying while playing it because they just don't want to stop. Zerg rushes and stuff like that I've read in an article that I don't understand. I definitely think it's got potential. And I think really it's something we've all been working towards. It is where the industry is going. It's like, there's more emphasis. You look at Assassin's Creed Unity, introduced a mode where, a game where you couldn't feasibly see how it'd be playable with more than one player, can then add a multiplayer mode. But then you think, how have we never had this before? Halo, when it did the 4-player co-op, and it was like, and then with Reach, they had a story for each of those players. It wasn't just you were playing a different Spartan, you were suddenly a character. And it's then sort of saying, actually, this 4-player split screen, it's not just 4 players, it's 4 people who each want to associate with their character. And then so we've seen that change up. And then it's been, rather than a separate co-op mode, let's just make the game optional which way you go. So you're playing the narrative as a group. And then you go further and you go further until you get to where we are now with things like Titanfall, where multiplayer is the single player. With Destiny, multiplayer is the only game. Even if you haven't got Xbox Live Gold, you're still in a world in which is multiplayer.
It's the shared world shooter, as that's called it.
And that is only gonna increase and increase and increase in both size and in scope and in involvement. And that's great. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to see people dropping out of school to be a pro gamer. Because it will happen. I dare say there are people now who already have done it in America, who they've seen, like the Major League Gaming network.
I wouldn't be surprised. There's probably people from the UK have gone to try and make their fortune.
Jihadi John. He's one of them. Oh no, that was ISIS. That wasn't pro gamers. They're different. That would be amazing though if like the Major League Gaming was just the Islamic State, just trying to brainwash a load of kids into being really good at war. And then just suddenly it was like Red Dawn. They just all switched them on like sleeper agents, and it was just. But yeah, I don't think it's likely, but you never know.
Well,
paranoid hat, tinfoil.
Tinfoil hat on. I was just saying, it was just an advert for a program, really, I suppose, that just made me consider the future. As I said, there's $1 million prizes now, and there's other competitions that have gone on for years. Win this figurine, or
listening to the radio, you considered the future.
We did.
That sounds like you were on Beachy Head.
But to be fair, last time
folding your clothes on the cliff face.
Last week when I came to pick you up, news story on Radio 2 before I parked outside the shop was Nazi super cows that had been put down in Devon.
It was. We never mentioned it on the show.
I know. We missed the opportunity, so I'm mentioning it.
And now it seems appropriate after we've talked about the Nazis, we've talked about extermination, ISIS, Adolf Hitler. Yeah, so Nazi super cows. Which, what was it he said? If they saw you, they'd kill you.
Yeah, it was something like, if they were the other side of the field and they saw you now, they would literally come across here and try and kill you. They want to wipe you off the face of the earth.
Brilliant. Yep. You've got to love Devon, was it?
Yeah. I think he had to kill 14 of his 20.
Devon knows
they were too aggressive.
How they make them so evil.
Wow. Great. I like that. That's nice.
Right. Well, let's move on from one disappointment to another.
Oh, dear Lord, yes.
Tapped Out.
Yes.
You're angry about Tapped Out.
Fucking elves. What is it?
Nearly over. It finishes tomorrow at 4:00. So that's
13th of January.
Wednesday, 4:00. It'll have happened before people listen to this. Well, hopefully, because sometimes it carries on for a couple of days. But yeah, it should finish tomorrow at 4 p.m. our time.
So by the time this goes out, it will have.
Well, it depends if I edit this and put it out tomorrow morning, which I might do, just for fun.
So it may still be on there, it may not, I may still be suffering.
But I mean, this is the thing. Is it because the event's gone on for too long? Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Have you managed to collect everything?
No.
It's gone on for longer than normal, and I still haven't been able to collect everything. And I play a lot. Oh, you know, I play every day, 5, 6, 7 times a day for a big session, and then just tap around.
Conceivably log on to it every 3 hours and fire my little cannon 3 times.
Yeah.
Maybe.
See, even now,
3 hours.
I've got to get 4,000
more bells.
Yeah. My cannon's upgraded to fire every 2.25 hours. I fire 13 at a time. Even then, it's not doable.
It's just...
And it's demoralising when you get to that real... There's websites like Tapped Out Maniacs or Fanatics, so it's called. They actually did a calendar. Yeah. Because they talk to EA and EA tell them what you need and how this will be this.
They built up that reputation.
And so they had a calendar which basically said, if you've got this many bells by this date, you're okay. If you're behind, don't worry, you can still catch up, get lots of new friends. By halfway through the month, I was nowhere near. Yeah. By that point, I thought, there's no point trying. because I already know I'm 4 days behind. I can't make up those 4 days. There's going to be days over Christmas where I'm not going to play that much because I've got family around, or I'm working really hard, so there's these days where you think, I'm going to touch it for 8 hours that day. So that's 500 bells lost. Or I'm not going to get visitors to my town this week because they're all out seeing family. Yeah. So I'm not going to get any of those. And the cogs thing to upgrade the cannon, there's just so many cogs.
Yeah.
Like, at the moment, I think it's 620 to get the next upgrade. That's like, you get maximum of 5, I think, per elf. That's a lot of elves if you're lucky enough to get them from every elf.
It's like a loot drop thing again. You might get.
It is. I mean, the story I enjoyed when it was a story, but it wasn't the best event they've ever done. If you compare it to the Family Guy one, which was Miracle on Spooner Street, the evil chicken destroyed Christmas, so they had to fight back, and he was Ebenezer Chicken. You had Santa, Lois, then you had snowmen and reindeer and elves that have all in the town. You had Die Hard, the Nakatari Plaza building, plus John McClane as an unlockable character, because that's Christmas. Then they had Kiss Saves Christmas, which was in a Family Guy episode. You got those as characters you could buy if you wanted, and a Kiss stage for your thing. There was loads of really good content, and then it finished, and they did a New Year event to round it out. So that kind of Christmas finished, I think, on the 30th, and then they started the New Year content, which is just allowing you to spend any of your currency from the Christmas one, and just say, look, it's New Year, here's new characters. They got Gillian, which is Drew Barrymore girlfriend. You've got her in it. And so they've gone that building in Times Square where the ball drops. Yep. They've got that, but with 2 balls to drop, which is obviously Family Guy.
Family Guy, yeah.
But it paced it well. It paced it a lot better, and it just highlighted for me with The Simpsons. Once that story-based mission had gone, all that's left is just tap.
I think at the moment the only 2 missions I've got are one for Cletus's farm, because I'm doing the corn for 90 days. Yeah. And literally, when that's done, it's whatever his chrysanthemums, 45 seconds. So that's sat there for probably 80 days. Well, I'm waiting for his corn to finish. And the other one is the elves. Keep upgrading the cannon. Yeah. And it's like, even if it was just a really
you've got to motivate
crappy
you.
Mr. Burns one, make Mr. Burns walk the hounds.
Well, I got the spruce caboose. Which, I don't know if you've got that yet.
I haven't. That's the next thing.
I got the spruce caboose. It gives you 1 mission for 3 minutes, which is make them eat it, spruce caboose.
And the thing that frustrates me is there's certain things which never come back around.
No.
Lard Lad donuts. Well, I started playing after that had already been. So either I spend in-game donuts, which, to be fair, I have got. Yeah. I've just built up over time. Or I don't have it.
Well, that was never free. They gave the Church of Lard Lad away.
Yeah, I've got that. Sorry, I thought the Lard Lad was way back when.
The premium building that gave away was Barney's Bowler Armour.
Okay, I have got that as well. Alright, I'm sorry, I stand corrected with the Lard Lad,
but yeah,
my sensitive point remains the same, like the Stonecutters.
It would be nice if, the event... I mean, they did...
the Stonecutters might be a better...
Halloween and Christmas, some of the Christmas items and some of the Halloween items were from the year before, they did give you a chance, but they were then just premium.
Yeah.
So unless a story required, so like the 8 Kang, I think, Kang.
You get Kang and
the last one you got him, this year you could just get Kang to start the mission, so that was kind of like, it was nice in a way that people got through, but then you think, well, I paid for that. Yeah. What? Why am I doing this? So it's like they do need to kind of just balance that out a bit. The thing that annoys me is they've got really good storyline this 1 minute, like the Matt Groening storyline, where it's him talking to his creation. Yeah, it just stops. Yeah. He's now got no missions where he interacts anymore. He just walks around.
He just does his job.
It was almost like there was a 5-minute joke there, and now they don't know what to do with it. So he's just there, and
so
the town's full of that.
Like Family Guy's done and brought Futurama into it.
Yeah,
because obviously Family Guy brought American Dad into it.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought they were going to do.
But I did.
And
I've seen Emma playing Family Guy, and all of a sudden you hear Stan Smith talking.
Did the crossover episode where it was Simpsons-rama, so it wouldn't have hurt them to have done it. And they've had Bender's head in there. Yeah. Talking, and I was like,
but it would have opened up so many potential missions.
Well, they could have had an alternate town where it's then a Futurama town. So you just go through a wormhole.
Yeah, but they've already had that. It's called Krusty Land, and they abandoned it.
Yeah, but Futurama, you keep growing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose you could have.
I'd like that, but no, it is frustrating because it's something that I love playing. Yeah, but it's a chore now rather than enjoyment. I mean, obviously, what I'm hoping is they just stop this event and there's no new event immediately, because they've been doing that a bit too much as well. There's always an event on.
Yeah, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
So
all bang,
I
bang,
want
bang.
a gap between now and Easter where I can rebuild my town, redesign it, build up some money, because every time there's a new level cap, the new building cost me $1.5 million cash.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm trying to get those premium prestige buildings. Well, I can't do that and just do the story.
Yeah.
And I want the story. So, the Fortress of Choctitude will have to wait a little bit longer. And it's just almost like saying, hey, but if you spend donuts, you can get cash. No, I'm not doing it. I have spent money. I did talk about it before. I spent like 60 quid of birthday money that was told to be spent on Tapped Out, and I spent it on Tapped Out. And I don't regret it. It's nice. It added content to my game. But I want that content that I've paid for to benefit me more than just giving me 50% on extra jobs.
Yeah.
I want it to be, let's have more storyline.
I think I spent my donuts. I accidentally tapped it once, so it spent my donuts on like finishing a house. But then I set my settings so it would like do shenanigans.
Yeah.
I think I've only actually used donuts for one thing seriously. That was Hank Scorpio's Volcano Lair. Because I loved the episode You Only Move Twice. Yeah. My favourite episode, hands down. I loved Hank Scorpio. The last fancy dress party I went to, I went with Hank Scorpio. With the hearing symbol and things. And that's it. And obviously did his missions. Now he walks around my town all day, Scorpio. But it doesn't do anything. It creates cash every 24 hours. But
it would just be nice if every now and then there was a mission.
So now I've built these donuts up again. I'm like, what do I buy? I could get the Cracker Factory and get Luan, I suppose, or I could get Pooh's place. It's like Duff Brewery. And
see, that's it. I got the Cracker Factory. I got Duff Brewery. I only got the Cracker Factory because I wanted the Pitter.
Fleeter Peter. Yeah. That's why I
wanted that because it was the only thing in Krusty Land I couldn't build, and it was annoying me. So I then finished it and then thought, well, there's a world I'd never have to go back to.
Yeah. I think I've been back very occasionally, and it's just.
I always worry that I'm going to go back and there'll have been a whole load of new buildings I could have built. I just didn't know because nobody would know.
I think I had that once. There was like Bumblebee Man's taco trainer. Yeah. I built one, and that was it. Right.
Well, they had like the Boozy and all the 7 Duffs.
Again, that was done in.
They were just like there secretly, and then you just bought them. Yeah. That was done. There was no mission really, apart from I think place one of them, and then the rest just appeared, and I was like, oh, buy one.
But it's just sort of even like the Clash of Clans storyline they did. You kind of hit a point with Bart's Box Castle and Lisa's recycling one. It's like, cool, you've got half the wall. Now you have to use donuts to build the other half.
Yeah. It's a lot of people who listened when we did this discussed it on Mature Gamer, and they were kind of like, I'll stop playing the game. I'm fed up with you going on about it. The point is, the reason they've stopped the game is the reason why we're now feeling disjointed.
Yeah.
The point is,
they hit that point a lot quicker than we have.
Well, we were perhaps a level above that. Not better than them, but just we were more involved. We were willing to put money in. Yeah. To get these items, to get these characters, because we probably have more of a love for the series.
I've not put any money into it. I've just accumulated donuts over time.
See, I've put money in, but only because it was a gift. But again, I have bought characters. I bought Kearney, Handsome Old Man, and the Squeaky Voice Team just from having donuts in the game. Never paid for them. They were just available to me because I had it. Like you bought the Volcano, it's 160 donuts or something like that. So that is 4 characters if you didn't go down that route. So for us, like, we like The Simpsons a lot. So the game rewards our
love of
knowledge of the series. Because the funny thing is, like, the little characters are from obscure episodes. Like Hank Scorpio. Yeah. It's a very good episode, but it's an old episode. And that's a lot of donuts to spend on something if you don't have any attachment to it. But that's the point. This game is made for people like us. We're the sort of people who would buy Simpsons Seen It. Or Simpsons Monopoly, or
I've
stuff
got Simpsons
like that.
Monopoly. And we the bus at me once.
And this is the point. It's like it's a series that we're fans of. Yeah. So therefore, the game rewards that. But then, if you haven't got that history or that love of it, there isn't much of a game there at all. It's why I look at Candy Crush and I just go, I don't understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because I've played Puzzle Quest, which is match 3 with an RPG element, and I loved it. And I look at Puzzle Quest, I look at Candy Crush, I just think, that's just Bejeweled.
Puzzle Fighter. It's Ryu and Chun-Li.
But at least there's a fighting element to that, This is just, it's just moving around. Oh, there we go. Next level. Moving around.
A game on the Xbox on the pub.
Yeah. It's very bizarre. But again, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the event finish. Very much looking forward to seeing it. Just stop that noise when you just hear breaking glass every time you do it.
I've just got the sound turned off on that.
I have it when I listen to music. Funny. Yeah, it's every now and then it's okay. But even like the agents investigating the elves, there was a storyline to basically say you could drop these in other towns, and that was it.
Yeah,
all very odd. But we will see next week What's changed? We'll probably be very happy with it next week because they've given us all 50 donuts for free as an apology for a rubbish event.
Well, the last download reset on my houses, they've all got Christmas decorations again.
I think now's the time for us a moment of reflection and a moment of context, because of course we're moaning about a game.
Yeah.
When last week, obviously, some awful things happened in France.
They did.
Charlie Hebdo's office was assaulted. For anybody who doesn't really get it, I mean, obviously it's been all over the news, it's been explained, but this is like gunmen bursting into the Mock the Week studio and shooting Dara Breen and Frankie Boyle and Milton Jones. I mean, they could have the others, but those three I wouldn't want to be without. Yeah, shoot that guy with a load of teeth, Rob Beckett. Get rid of him. Easy, get rid of him. It might even sort out Russell Thingy's eye.
Russell Brand?
No,
Russell Howard.
Russell Howard, yeah, it might sort out his eye. Or just shoot me if we wear an eye patch. Yeah. I'm not suggesting if you are a terrorist or you're listening to this. I mean, I know when I mentioned about a goose and the crossbow, somebody shot a goose with a crossbow. I'm not suggesting that anyone commits a terrorist atrocity against the studio of Mock the Week, because that would be awful. But if you do see Rob Beckett walking on his own, feel free to knock his teeth out, just because he can eat a banana with his foot.
Can he?
Which is not right. But yes, that is essentially, they were, probably more spit image and the day-to-day and Private Eye and that kind of thing. But they were very much on the side of the political kind of
satire.
The right side of things, the questioning voice. And they were the same people who had their offices firebombed when they did the Mohammed cartoon. So, you know, they were not a stranger to it. Amazingly, the big thing that came out of it was I never knew quite how much of a police force France had until they were all in Paris at the same time. And they don't have police cars, apparently. They just have transit vans full of coppers and lots of helicopters.
They don't mess about. When it comes down to it, they don't mess about.
Of guns. It was incredible. I mean, it was a show of force and control. There was no panic. Listening to the Sky News reporters trying to interview the police from France and like their spokesperson was incredible, because you got Sky who just want all the drama. Yeah. And then you had the French who were saying, well, we don't know what their motives are at this moment in time, and until we know, we're not going to speculate. Yeah. And Sky were like, well, we've heard that they watched a lot of Rainbow as a child. Do you think that Bungle is responsible for this? Oh no, we can't say that anyone is. It was this amazing kind of wall of, and then obviously the protest marches and the Je suis Charlie and stuff like that, where it was actually, if that had been America, well, as we saw after 9/11, which obviously 9/11 was far, far worse. I'm not saying any loss of life is awful, but just that sheer kind of immediate, we need to invade a country. We need to fight back. And France was like, we don't need to fight. Even the brother of the policeman said, no, Islam's a religion of love. These people weren't Islamic. They were terrorists. Yeah. It was just that realistic attitude. Now, on this side of the this side of the channel, the stream to the pond, it kind of, the British government had, and probably still will try, lots of state control now to say, look, we can stop this from happening here. This is the perfect time for them to say, we need ID cards. But France has got all that. Got a lot of state surveillance that couldn't stop it.
Exactly. And,
I mean, the terrorists who got to that kind of factory unit thing, they were let in by the security guard who shook him by the hand. I mean, the point is, a terrorist is, except that is you or I. Yeah. Not you or I. If you're listening, police, Tony Blair or whoever. Not Tony Blair, David Cameron. Well, Tony Blair might be listening. He's a fan.
Did he send you one of the very sinister Christmas cards?
He does. But the point is it's the one person in the street who you wouldn't necessarily pick out could be the biggest threat to you. And that's what terror is. It's not trusting the person next to you. It's when you sit on a bus and you see somebody holding a bag and you feel nervous. Yeah. That's what terrorism is supposed to do.
A bit like governments go, we need to give the security agencies more power. Exactly. Basically, they've panicked and had a knee-jerk reaction because they're scared. But it's also, this
is the time to get that pushed through because the public is frightened. Governments love it when the public is frightened because you can do what you want. And
Chancellor David Cameron.
So then you look at it and you think, oh, this is terrible. Like, we live in this time of terrorism that's quite close to us. I mean, it could have been the Channel Tunnel could have been attacked. Luckily it wasn't. But, that could have been us. And I went to the BBC News website today just to sort of have a look, just for sense of context. What is the most shared and commented and discussed article on the BBC News. It was Cadbury's cream egg recipe changed.
Yeah.
I love it.
Isn't that a very British thing, though? I'm not, again, playing down any event through the last 50, 60, 100 years, but obviously with the IRA and the troubles in Northern Ireland, and obviously there were bombings in Manchester, London, the British attitude, the kind of keep calm, carry on thing, I think even the French attitude is the same
here. It is
here.
But Rob, I think I'm missing the point here. They've changed the recipe for the Cadbury's
cream egg. Is that why you
egg.
put them down in Morrison's earlier? You sort of picked them up and like...
I picked up a dessert, a cream egg dessert. Now, normally I'd buy that.
Okay.
But then I thought, you know what, they might change that recipe as well. Now, firstly, I don't know if you've read the details of this, but I am au fait with the details, and I am outraged. I went into Tesco's the other day to buy some cream eggs, because it's Easter, and I always buy cream eggs at
because
Easter.
It's not Christmas anymore, so the cream eggs are out.
Right? And I went in, and I thought, I'm going to get my 6 cream eggs in a box. Oh, I do love getting my 6 cream eggs in a box. I couldn't find one, Rob. They only do 5. 5.
That's a random number.
Yeah, apparently, because costs have increased, so they can only justify 5.
Are the eggs also smaller? Is this the thing with Mars bars? The Mars bars
the
are
eggs
smaller.
Seem slightly smaller. But you can buy a 12 box. Oh, there's no problem with there. They just got a problem with the number 6. And you know what half the number 6 is?
Yeah.
3. And that's the magic number. And they know that. So Cadbury's...
Has the show just gone full circle?
Well, now Cadbury's are owned by Kraft in America. Obviously, it's them. Because they don't like proper chocolate, do they?
No,
in America.
They like cheese.
So the chocolate on a Cadbury's cream egg, apparently, is no longer dairy milk chocolate. Well, what other sort of chocolate do Cadbury's make, Rob?
Bourneville.
It's not Bourneville either. Do you know what it is? It's just cocoa-based chocolate. It's just chocolate made by Cadbury's. What's the point of it not being dairy milk? It's just
Is it also 10% thinner?
Do you know, I had one the other day.
You should look into this.
And when I bit it, it did take a lot less. You know, like, the creams are quite...
No,
you've got a bit of a snap to it, and then you've got goo all over your chin.
It's not something your granddad could do, because his teeth would fall out.
Well, see, you know how they did that, how do you eat yours? I used to always just put it in a hole, and just
choke.
Let it, I'd put it into the side of my mouth. I've got quite a big inside of my mouth. I can put quite a lot
bigger
in
on the inside.
It is. Time or technology, and the fact that I've had 2 teeth taken out. So, you put the cream egg, I put it into the side of my mouth, I crunch it, and I just suck all the goo out, and then I eat the chocolate. And that worked fine. This one, I could just bite it through like an apple. It was very weird. And it didn't taste right. And then I found out about this recipe change. And much like most people who are outraged about things, it's only after they've read it on the internet they suddenly become outraged. Because I didn't notice it wasn't Cadbury's chocolate. Because I didn't notice it wasn't Cadbury's chocolate. Because it is Cadbury's chocolate. You just thought
it tasted a bit funny.
It's just not dairy milk chocolate. But now I know it's not dairy milk chocolate. Frankly, I'm appalled. I don't ever want to eat a cream egg again. Until this is overturned.
You know, there's an election coming up. This could be like a turning issue.
I think that I genuinely believe that Cadbury's next year will use dairy milk. I think they will be so shocked by the outcry that they'll be forced to. It's happened before. Cocoa Pops tried to change Cocoa Krispies, or Choco Krispies or something like that, and that's went back. They went, whoa, fuck off. You are not changing Cocoa Pops. Hands off our chocolate monkey.
It didn't have the same effect with Starburst, though.
It didn't, but then Opal Fruits. It's like Voxel, Opal. We want to get rid of that word. I still call them Opal Fruits. I still call them Mars Bar, right? Because that's what it's called.
It's a Mars bar. It's a bar.
Marathon I'm thinking of. I still call the Snickers bar a marathon. I don't eat peanuts, I don't eat them, so I don't buy them very often. But I still see it as a marathon. But yeah, there's all these kind of things, but they're just changing the cream egg. I mean, frankly, I wish the terrorists had survived so that they could actually go up against Kraft. We could say, look, we'll let you off. We've got one mission for you. Like DC Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn. We were like, listen, we'll give you one deal.
Oh God, are we going down this road?
Committed some awful things.
Oh dear Lord.
But there's a guy somewhere who thought it was okay to just stop using dairy milk chocolate. Now, we don't want you to kill him. We just want you to make him a little bit frightened. You're a terrorist. Instill terror. Don't kill. You're not a killist. Terrorist. You could just go in there, like stand there and just go. In the middle of the night, that'd be creepy. I'd stop. Like, have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah. Well, season 1.
Okay, right. In the later series of Breaking Bad, Walt basically tells some people that they need to do as he's saying. Otherwise, they'll be in trouble. And he does that. And then some red dot sights shine on these people's chests.
Yeah.
And they did what he said. Now, whether or not those red dot sights were actually attached to anything, doesn't matter. That's what instilling terror is. Now, this is the thing with terrorists I don't get. I don't get why they can only instill terror by committing atrocities. Like, for me, I'm more frightened of going in the sea than I am of getting on a plane with a load of people who are carrying ticking bags. Because I know statistically I'm far more likely to drown or be stung or have a fish go up my penis or get my foot tangled and then get drowned or fall in a hole on the beach and end up buried alive.
Is quite dangerous. It's
a very dangerous place to be. There are speedboats. Kirsty McCall off of Fairy Tale New York was killed by a speedboat crashing into her. Yeah. It's a terrifying place. It genuinely fills me with fear. I feel nervous if I'm stepping towards the water. But I don't have any problem on the underground. I've seen more people hurt on the underground than I've seen in the sea, but the sea is more terrifying. So if I was a terrorist, I'd invent a sea machine that just put the sea somewhere. Not flooding everywhere, not a tidal wave, not like a big Bond villain thing, but just use these things that frighten people. And actually, like Scarecrow in Batman. Yeah. He used people's fears. Yeah. He was a terrorist in the actual sense of what it is. Well, that's kind of like, I wouldn't like to see it, obviously, so it frightened me. Yeah. But at the same time, I think these terrorists they're not really committed to it very much. Like, anyone can make a bomb out of some fertilizer and some other equipment I'm not going to mention in case we get taken down as like the new anarchist handbook. But anyone could do that and just drive into a military checkpoint and blow themselves up. I mean, frankly, somebody who did it wrong could get that right. They might only kill themselves. They can still blow it up, still instill fear, because people go, oh my god, now I don't know whether that next car coming towards me might have another idiot who's willing to blow themselves up, thinking there's an eternal salvation for them. Sure there isn't, but... And, yeah, I just want terrorists to be scary. Northampton Clown. Remember him? Yeah. That's a terrorist in my book. Like, he was just knocking on people's windows, just waving at people. It creeped everyone out. Like, even me. I thought, I don't want to see that.
I don't want to go to Northampton anymore.
No, frankly, I wasn't going to Northampton anyway. It's a horrible place full of horrible people. If you're listening from Northampton, move. But it did just make me feel like, imagine if you were like just walking home and you saw that. Could you imagine that if like ISIS suddenly went, you know what? All this war and stuff, it's not very effective. And then they just suddenly dressed as clowns and just hung around in like Chepstow. Oh, Britain had come to a standstill. People wouldn't go out at night. That's what international terrorism needs to be in the 21st century.
Dress up in a clown suit.
Dress up as a clown suit. Or, like, you know those Japanese prank shows where they have like a scary little girl that'll appear? Just do that. But in like Canary Wharf. Just have a ghost of a girl go, and frighten people in lifts. And it would make a difference. I'm just saying, there'd be no killing, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
People would be a little bit frightened, which is good as well, because we need to be fearful sometimes, but not fearful of our government, fearful and protected by our government. So they could fight the ongoing threat of clowns in our high streets, which I pay taxes for. Right? I don't support a war.
Don't pay taxes now.
I don't support a war in Syria, for example. Yeah. As far as, because my understanding of the situation in Syria is only what I've been told by the media. And what I've read. And they're all very conflicting. Yeah. Like, if you look at Syria, the people we were trying to overthrow in Syria, we helped ISIS to overthrow, and now ISIS are the bad guys. Yeah. It's like, it happens over and over. You give weapons to one person to beat somebody, and then somebody else.
The Taliban and overthrowing the Taliban.
Exactly. So there's always going to be some thing. I don't support that, because too many people die, and it's all just money at the end of the day. Money and power. Oh, yeah. Right? Clowns off a high street. I can deal with that. And the only knock-on effect it would be less clowns, which is a good thing. Like, they're just creepy, man. They're just creepy.
Oh, all this was about at the end of the day. You've gone down a really controversial path here just because you hate clowns.
No, the point is still valid. It's, if terrorists strive to create fear and panic and terror, there are far more effective ways than blowing stuff up and shooting people. Because it didn't work in France. No, it had the complete opposite. I mean, it had France marching towards an armed enemy. That's a new thing. I've never seen that. It had people, I mean, admittedly the photo was somewhat staged, but it had world leaders. Yeah. I don't know if you saw that kind of photo. But it doesn't matter. They were there, linked arms. The actual imagery.
I have my own issues with the world leader photo op, but the principle of
Did you see the picture of David Cameron with his sunglasses on looking like a shit Terminator?
it was just more some of the people who sent representatives, like, free speech, human rights, unity. Like, it's something else.
But the point is, it made people who don't necessarily agree with it stand up and say they agree with it.
Against.
And that's nice. So in essence, the terrorists have failed on every level because they had absolutely no sympathy. They had instilled very little fear whatsoever, despite what news coverage wanted you to think.
Yeah.
The only people I think who were fearful were the parents of children who were told to stay inside the schools, but they were protected. It would be. I sat and when I thought about it, actually, as much as I'm sad for the people who've died, I'm more sad now for the parents of the children who can't get close. Because that's, so as a parent, I'd be like, not even as a parent, because that's a horrible wanky thing to say. Like, you can only understand this if you're a parent, but just imagine, for anybody, if you're related to anybody that's ever had a child, you're a child yourself, what would it be like to be in a room told you're not going to see your mum and there's a man with a gun outside? Hopefully they weren't told that. Saying that, watching the footage of it, there was an amazing moment, which I'm hoping, really am hoping, Charlie Brooker repeats in his yearly wipe. Because it was brilliant live TV. And it will never be repeated because it was unintentionally funny at a time where there was nothing funny going on. So essentially there's a lot of images of armed SWAT team by a little wall. And there was a green hill.
I remember the
and they were stood
picture,
there.
As it were, the image.
Yeah. And this was from a long way away because the police had basically cleared the whole area out. Now, some of these SWAT team needed to get on top of the hill. But this hill was very wet and slippery. Oh, it was like watching kids trying to walk up a slide. They were slipping, one guy fell and slid face down. It was like Takeshi's Castle, but with terrorism element. More so than usual.
A really dangerous element to the whole thing.
And I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, this is awful. Oh, he just fell over again. Oh God, this is good. And then like one of them grabbed a tree and grabbed his mate. It was like the moment of heroism. Like he was Sylvester Stallone in Cliffhanger. And then his mate slid away and you just saw him go, it's like that. It was 5 minutes of men fully pumped up trying to get up a hill. And it was a moment of relief that the news didn't want to look away from because it knew it was funny and it knew it would help.
Yeah.
And they didn't have much to go on, to be honest, because the French just shut it down properly. I loved seeing the armed police go up to Sky News and basically just going, who are you? There you go, we're Sky News. And they just went, no. Do one. Oh, you're Sky News. Go that way. Drive into the channel. Now. Let's go. And let's not forget, we're in the week where Fox News said that Birmingham was 100% Muslim and white English people don't go there, which led to, in my mind, the best that Twitter has ever done. Did you look at the Fox News facts?
I did. Some of them were fantastic.
The Ice Gems was my favourite. They had a picture of Ice Gems and it went, in Britain today, children can go to the corner shop and buy tiny sugar mosques.
I think Mecca Bingo might have been my first.
Mecca Bingo is very good. They had teenagers are forced to sit at home and read Quran, which I thought was very, very funny. Yeah. The Death Squad is led by Quran. They had that. They had Jasper Carrot with a QA, with his golden sphere of doom. It was just incredible. But then what happened was, and I don't know whether it's been proved to be a fake account or whether it generally was Fox, but there was then like a legal team who started responding to these Fox News facts hashtags saying, this was not attributed to Fox, take it down or face legal action. Now, if it was a joke, it's hysterical because that's exactly what you'd expect Fox to do. If it's not a joke, it's hysterical because it's exactly what you expect Fox to do. But it's just,
in a very black humour sort of way, that was kind of, I don't say the best part of it because that sounds absolutely awful, but the spirit of Charlie Hebdo almost.
Yeah.
Because there's always
it was amazing
hysteria
but then there was
Fox
British
News.
people when they got this message who then went, no, sorry, I don't think you understand. It was a joke. Like, guys, just bants. It was just bants. It was just bants, Fox News. You know, like, when you say that this is true, but it's not actually true, it was just like that, but it was a joke.
It was the fact that even David Cameron was quoted in the paper as saying, I nearly spat my porridge out. It was one of those moments of his keyboard going,
I think that's just because he forgot to blow it, because he's a fucking idiot.
Wow.
That's why he spat it out. Or it didn't have quite enough pure crystallised meth on it. That was his problem. That's how he gets through the day. That's what Nick Clegg's for.
If this episode doesn't get banned from iTunes inside the first month, then nothing will.
Well, the same thing is, it's a gaming podcast at heart. But the thing is, these things are internet culture. I mean, the Charlie Hebdo thing, the Je suis Charlie thing, the Fox News facts. It is what is part of everything that we do. It's whether we read a book, or whether you play a game, or whether you watch a film, or whether you read graphic novels,
and they were the best
whatever.
Again, it sounds terrible. They were the most heartening elements
Of a
coming
bad
out
week.
of a tragedy. A bad week.
And that's
I
the
chose
thing.
my words quite poorly.
When 7/7 happened, I remember talking to Hamhock about it, and he was saying in London, all you could see was just boxes outside every shop.
Yeah.
And what it was is nobody's using public transport. So shop owners just started selling trainers to people who obviously were wearing business shoes and needed to walk home. So he said everywhere you looked, it was just shoe boxes.
Yeah, and people carried on.
Yeah,
With
everyone
trainers
just was like, oh well, the bus isn't coming. Let's buy himself some trainers and I'll walk home then. And it was that feeling of, it doesn't matter. I mean, Britain has, like you said, through the IRA, through the Blitz, through everything else, it's always had somebody to face up against.
Carry on. There's never been.
And the British attitude is very much like our attitude tonight, which is, you know what, fuck it. Fingers up. You think you're clever, you think you're funny, we can make a better joke than you. We can talk for 10 minutes about how clowns would be more terrorist than terrorists are, because you're shit at it. You know, that's the point. When the tsunami happened, the Boxing Day tsunami, I remember, and I wasn't amused at the time, but there was a joke going, oh, Santa must have been over the area, he's given them all a wave. And it was like, and that was within 20 minutes of it. And it was like, oh God, not only, because like that person wasn't the funniest person in the world, so they'd obviously heard it off someone else. Yeah. So somebody must have thought that the minute it happened. And it just went through, and it is that British thing. It's like when we talked about Peaches Geldof, and we were saying jokes about, well, peaches don't keep that long anyway, and she was spoiled ages ago and all that. We were talking about that. Dalek and I were talking about that the minute it was announced. We didn't know what it was. We assumed it was drug related because it's Peaches Geldof. But, you know, it was all these things, and I did the joke, which was, well, I bet Bob really hates Mondays now, because it was just, at the time, it seemed appropriate. Yeah. It took about 45 minutes for somebody on Twitter to make that joke. But, of course, the episode didn't go out because we were rubbish at editing in time for about 5 days, so we looked like we'd stolen jokes. But we were making this joke that just is the worst possible conclusion you can come to. And that's the thing with bad taste. And it's the thing which Lolocaust got a kind of reputation for. And I'm not necessarily saying this is what this is going to be, because it's not. It's just this week, it has been a very stressful week in terms of world politics. And then it becomes farcical, and you have to make a joke. It's why programs like If I Got News For You and Spitting Image did so well, because there's so much to parody. There's so much to say, this isn't something we should fear. This is something we should question. Yeah. This isn't something we should just accept. This is something that we should fight against. And when it comes to humour like that, it is a coping mechanism. But it's also, as you say, it's a very British thing. And you see it in some American comics, but not many. And the ones who do generally are people like Bill Hicks, who then doesn't do massively well in America because his humour is more a British way of looking at things. And yet when he came to Britain, he was as appalled by Britain as he was by America. He did a brilliant routine about, he looked at a porn mag, and it was the late 80s, so everything had a star over it. And he went, now, I don't know about you, but if I'm buying a porn mag, I know what a pussy looks like. Putting a star over it, that doesn't stop me. I've got an imagination. And it's a great routine at a time where there's no other comedians doing routines like that. It's so publicly. You know, there would have been alternative comedians doing stuff like that, but they wouldn't have been as revered as he was. And it's a shame he died. But his criticism of things like the Waco massacre, it was him saying, you know, this isn't okay. And it is sometimes humour and very strong political views go hand in hand. You find comedians, particularly left-wing or lefty comedians like Stuart Lee and people like that, who will be very critical of the mainstay government. They're the people who understand the government better than some people who are paid to understand the government, because they criticise it. You pull apart things to criticise. That's what we do. And it's fun. And sometimes we just play games.
Sometimes
we just haven't played many.
We'll play games.
We haven't played many games this week because of terrorists, and so we had to talk about the terrorists instead. And the Creme Eggs thing. I mean, frankly, I think
you're right. It kind of, maybe it puts things in context a little bit, but these tactics don't necessarily work on people. It was obviously a very shocking story for.
Well, look at it from.
It still is. There's still ripples in the water.
Look at Israel and the West Bank. Now, I'm not going to start getting into this one because it's another can of worms, and we're already at nearly 2 hours. But how much killing and death has happened there? and nothing's gained at all. And there are people who, they're not frightened to go on the streets. Like, by rights, no child should ever get shot, because if I was a parent, I'd be like, you're not going out there.
Yeah.
But the kids are out there because they're not frightened anymore. They know they can die. And when you know you can die at any point, but you hate so much, then you're willing to die.
Living in fear.
And it's, which do you do? Would you rather, I mean, it's like the Charlie Hebdo guy. He'd rather die standing up than live on his knees. And it's exactly what you tend to find. And that's what we do. You know, we'd rather stand up and laugh at you and potentially get told off and say that's not appropriate than sit there and think, oh, I don't want to go to France now. Like Stephen Fry went to Paris that day and he was saying it's beautiful. There's people out, and it's, if you're not in that area, you didn't need to know. You could hear the sirens, but it was France. It was the same as any other country. And, I think it was important that as a podcast, we have to reflect what's happened. Because like I said, it's internet culture. Yeah. Internet culture has fed into it. The whole thing with Charlie Hebdo, although it's a magazine publication, it feeds off of and has gained significance because of the internet. Their work is revered because people have shared it. Yeah. Like that cover with the kind of the Arab looking guy. I don't really want to say what it is because I don't know what their intention was, but it is essentially a Middle Eastern guy with a turban that looks like a big pair of balls. But I don't know whether that again is intentional, but it did just sort of say.
But they've parodied so many things. The Pope
and
Nicolas Sarkozy was
and their own
their
own president has been repeatedly called over the Front National. They were always up against the Front National, which is massively gaining popularity over the last couple of weeks, because obviously that's the sort of thing that if that had happened here, UKIP did already jump on it, but the Front National won the last election, if I remember right, or got a massive majority at the last election. So it's that kind of danger that, and they stood as a face to say, it's not okay to be violent. The French police does have a reputation for being very aggressive, and they would stand up against that. And that's the thing, it's not that.
And they did it through satire and humour.
Yeah, they don't represent France looking out at the world saying this is wrong, it's wrong. They stood there and looked at the world, France included, themselves included.
Well, we have this
and criticised things.
Private Eye. It's done in a more British way, and I think Charlie Hebdo
and I'll laugh at you,
French.
and I will take the mickey out of you, and you will take the mickey out of me. And at the end of it, we'd be fine with it because we know it's just a joke, man. It's just a joke, like on Top Gear, guys, it's just a joke. It's okay to say racist things because it's Top Gear, but it's that thing. And I think with games, I think this year there's a few games like This War of Mine, which puts you in the thing of the civilian during a war. Really powerful.
Very well received by a lot of people because it is
what
on
it
point,
is.
Really, yeah.
There's a game that I interviewed along with Kevin Steve, the maker of 1979 Revolution, which is the Iranian Revolution. That's due to be released this year, and if it's anywhere near as good as what he was proposing originally, should be. It puts you as a role of a photographer on the streets during that time, which for anyone listening is about, I think, the same rough time as when Argo. Yeah. So it's that same sort of trouble, that couple of years period. So you're seeing the start of that revolution, and you're witnessing it, and you're witnessing the military trying to take control, and just being in that. And that's the thing, you're not a super soldier, you're a person in a very real and actual situation. And there's going to be more games like this. And this event will help. Now, the reason episode 2 was delayed, and I'm going to explain this clearly to the listeners, is we had some jokes about the French assassin from Assassin's Creed Unity who speaks with an English accent. And it's a joke. It's an in-run joke that people keep going, why? Surely there was a French guy who could speak English who could do this. It's developed by a Canadian team. Yeah. It's not like there aren't sort of French sounding people around. And so I had this whole routine, and it was like 5 sketches, which were like, well, of course I'm French. I'm holding a baguette, aren't I? Yeah. And it would be, excuse me, I was going to pop in here and kill these people. And it was that bit where it was like, I'm in a market and I'm going to kill someone. It suddenly, although it wasn't massively funny to start with, it just then wasn't funny at all. Yeah. So we edited
what was
it
a
out.
tongue-in-cheek poke at Ubisoft?
Yeah, it then seemed like we were taking a mickey out of something.
The timing wasn't.
Yeah, and I didn't want anybody to think we were suddenly saying, well, actually, Charlie Hebdo murders, let's make a joke about that and tie it to Assassin's Creed. It was, so we edited it out. Now,
I think we've probably trodden the line enough just in
this is it. This is not, also, this is not me reacting saying, when we censored ourselves. It wasn't because we think we should censor ourselves. We won't. We will say what we want to say. If we really like a game, we'll rave about it. If we really hate a game, we'll rave about it. If we think that clowns are more frightening than jihadists, we'll will come out and say it. And I might even make a pin badge. Like, clowns, not suicide bombers. I just have a clown with a balaclava on. That would be, imagine that. That'd be so creepy. Like a balaclava, which is scary. They pull it off and there's just a clown under it. But like the Joker, where he took his Joker mask off and he was still the Joker.
Just the Joker.
Oh, that'd be awful. Or, do you ever watch League of Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Did you see series 3 where, Papa Lazarou was in disguise? And he had like flesh-coloured face paint on. And he got it smeared off and it was just black under it. It's like, oh god, that's awful. Like, that show's terrifying enough, but Papa Lazarou is awful. That's the sort of thing we need. Like, imagine if Papa Lazarou was just in your street. Like, you open your curtains in the morning, he was just there going,
hello there.
That's what terrorists should be doing. Dressed as Papa Lazarou. Just knocking on your
Open
door.
up local shops.
My wife would like to use your toilet. You just go, no, don't want to. That'd be absolutely awful. Ooh. Seems to have picked up a lot of feedback noise then. So if, there we go. Seems to have stopped it. Yeah. But yeah, so we will talk about what we talk about and we will not talk about what we don't talk about. And hopefully next week we'll have played a lot more games, but really it's the 3DS. We gave a good 45 minutes to that.
I enjoyed that actually.
And, so it's been a bit more political. It's not on running order. None of that. We had a bit of French toast versus cream egg recipe. Frankly, I was going to go on half an hour round about cream egg recipe. And instead I've now taken on everybody terrorist.
We did get very political this week.
We did. I do get that sometimes though. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for listening. If you would, like to visit our website at lolocaust.co.uk, there will be articles that support some of the things that we say. Not necessarily supporting us in, here's this outfit of choice. But there is the flying car video is now on there that we talked about in the last episode, which I had got wrong, the opening of that, but it's still very, very good. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Enjoy it?
I did.
Good. Go and look at that. Obviously there's Rob's Destiny article from before. There's another article on there at the moment which has got all the episodes, but you're listening to the episodes, that's not really amazing. I'm going to be writing a thing about the 3DS. So there'll be all the information I'm giving in here will be in paper format, so you can print it out and show it to your friends in the pub, stuff like that. You can follow us on Twitter at We Are The Lolocaust for letter R, or you can follow Rob at
Rob McGregor 35.
Or you can follow me at Bouncy with an H after the second B. Subscribe via iTunes. We're hopefully going to be on Stitcher this week. If you listen to it via Stitcher, let us know, because that means it worked. They are supposed to have emailed me within 48 hours. It's been 5 days. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. They might have listened to the last show, which was a good show. So, hopefully we're on there. And if you can review or comment or share them around as much as possible, because like I said, this first week is integral. Hopefully get its episode out, very quickly. It should be out Friday if we get the audio sorted well enough. But if not, it'll be sort of Saturday morning at the latest. And we will be back next week for episode 4, which is, so far, it's got a placeholder title. Would you like to hear what the placeholder title is for episode 4? Whoa, blimey. 4 blimey.
4 blimey.
Yeah.
Joke, I get joke.
I was going to do that. I was going to go the mighty hammer of 4.
Quite long.
Or after the winter comes the 4. There's a lot of them. I've got a book of puns about the number 4. And
library full of puns.
One of them might come through. That could be it. Just episode 4, library of puns. That could be there. Or episode 4, bounces in Guantanamo Bay. Redacted. No, just episode 4, redacted.
Black line.
But we will see you
next
week.
There never was a bouncy and never will be.
Who is this bouncy that you are talking about?
Rob, here of his own free will.
If I had a gun against my head, and I most definitely do not have a gun against my head, I do not have a gun against my head.
Fox News Network is the best network in the world.
Hashtag,
do not go to Birmingham.
Hashtag no gun against my head. We'll be back next week. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you soon. Wave, bye. Keep waving. Keep waving.
My arm's getting tired.
No, your arm can't get tired. The terrorist will win if your arm stops waving. Always stop waving. That's it then. We'll see you next week.